We are now live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us yet again tonight. I have Braylon and I have Tim, and we're talking Star Wars, the now Disney-owned intellectual property that they bought from George Lucas because George Lucas got sad and decided to cut his losses. Everybody hates the case against George Lucas. Everybody hated George Lucas. Midichlorians, the prequels, Jar Jar, the worst thing ever until we saw the new movies. And that's my stance on it. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's how I see it. It's like, you thought Jar Jar and the midichlorians and the prequels are bad, and sand, it's coarse and it gets everywhere. I hate sand. You hate sand, you're going to hate the new movies even more.
The porgs. I hate the porgs.
I hate those too, man. I saw those and I'm like, this is Disney. It's like, we need a cute little animal that people are gonna love, and when I saw them porg tattoos. I know people get tattoos of anything. I saw the porg tattoos. I'm like, can somebody just go up there with a cheese grater and just? But
jeez, that's not cool. Anything why porg
tattoo or a Pickle Rick tattoo?
Oh man.
Well, I mean, Pickle Rick is like a brand. It's like a brand. It's like the porg is just a bad choice. Pickle Rick is more along the lines of we know how, like, we got to keep these people from breeding.
One's a warning.
Yeah, one's a warning. One's just a bad choice. It's like, this person makes bad decisions. The other person, keep this thing from breeding. We don't need any more Rick and Morty fans floating around. They're going to try to do a Family Guy kind of deal, try to get it resurrected. I have a feeling, hey, if Seth MacFarlane could do it, can't Dan Harmon? Like,
well, is Dan Harmon even point on that project anymore?
I'm not sure. I know that I know that people are upset, but that's all I know about it. It's like, I never watched it, never cared to. I'm not a fan of Dan Harmon or anything he's done. So yeah, I have no. I
like some of his stuff. I just wish he didn't fucking hate us. That's the problem.
That's a lot.
Wait, what's the story behind this? Like, I think I've only seen one episode of Rick and Morty, and that's about it.
It's basically Marty McFly and Doc Brown, but very cartoony with a lot of pop culture references and other stuff as well. That's very, I guess you could say, hipster rehash of Back to the Future. That's the best way I could describe it.
That's that's a little rough. I mean, I'd say there's some genuinely good writing in there, but people just ran with it. Like, they thought it was like highbrow or something because it's all about like changing dimensions, and they make a lot of like science references, but like, it's about as deep as like The Big Bang Theory, and people like really took it seriously. Like this is some sort of intellectual show. It's not. It's a fun show, but oh god. So.
Well, I'm just a little rough. I'm when it comes to I've encountered some Rick and Morty fans have kind of soured. Yeah.
Well, that's the story, is the Rick and Morty. Like, it's not even the show that pisses you off. It's the fans. It's a shame.
That's with a lot of things, though.
Well, same thing with Star Wars. The people that get dressed up for the showings and show up in their costumes.
That's harmless.
No, that is one of those. This is why I dislike being identified as a fan of something. I can enjoy it, but I'm not a fan because of that right there. Fanatical means not being rational, sound mind and body, going out there and dressed up as a Jedi, standing there going, like, oh, give me a break. Come on.
That's why I say I'm a casual for everything.
But you get that with like everything. I mean, do you remember the videos from like the second Matrix premiere? Like, when people lining up dressed like that. Oh, like, I mean, you always get that. It doesn't matter if it's popular. You're gonna get that. And you know what? I almost think that's kind of a sign of success. Okay, I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
What about the people watching the trailers and stuff and crying? Like, oh my god, it's the Millennium Falcon. Like, I want to punch those
people. I don't understand, especially when I see people who are like younger than me who are doing that. I think it's probably just for the reaction views, because I'm just like, did you like did Star Wars like save your family in 1977? Like, did Mark Hamill like in the Millennium Falcon? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm like, that kind of connection. Like, man, that's Maybe you got other issues going on.
I don't know. I think that's with everything, though. Doctor Who fans, Star Wars fans.
Yeah, well, that's one. There you go. Like Doctor Who, I know it's supposed to be tongue in cheek and stuff, and I have trouble getting into it just because I've ran into it's Doctor Who fans who take it a little too seriously, and it turns me off from the show. I have trouble enjoying it because like from those experiences. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
I guess it comes back. Okay, first let's start.
But we can all agree, fuck Harry Potter fans, right?
Well, yeah, I don't Harry Potter fan. If I could go back in the time machine and just go and like spoil everything.
Wow.
Drive-by spoiling.
Oh my god.
Snape kills Dumbledore. Like nightmares, ruining everything. That'd be wonderful. Harry is a Horcrux. Oh. Just the not even screams, just like that shock. It sounds like a soul leaving their body, you know. But go back to I guess the origins of it all. I was first exposed to Star Wars thanks to it being on VHS. I'd watch it multiple times. All three.
Did you have the triple set with it was like Vader and Yoda and?
No, this is back in the '80s. That was the kind that had the painted box art.
Oh, the poster ones. That's the set before. Yeah.
But the downside is, you take them, you put them in and out of the cardboard sleeves so many times, the sleeves fall apart and like they kind of go every which way, and so I had to use just other blank clear plastic cases to put them in. And then Jedi got ruined because of watching it too many times, because I think I watched Jedi more than any of the other ones. Which just I like Jedi. I mean, as many issues people have with Jedi. Jedi was the black sheep of the family for the longest time. But that opening sequence, Luke's like, "Don't test my power," and he goes and kicks ass on the sail barge, and then that, just very adventure. Well, and like I was a big fan of Indiana Jones, and that's the reason that was very Indiana Jones like, and it was just solid.
You know what? I think Return of the Jedi is a little bit misunderstood. I think as a total overall arching story, it's not as good as the other ones because it doesn't hold its own unless you know the context from the other two movies. But that said, it's two short stories, and the second story is the most tight way to wrap up the Vader Luke Emperor subplot from the other movies. It's so tight and so well written, and I wouldn't change a thing about that. And it's like, well, yeah, but then it's only going to be 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So then they added this other short story in the front, which is the rescue of Han, which again is super tight. I wouldn't add anything to that. So it's really two short stories back to back that are necessary for resolving it. So I don't know. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people.
I don't hate it at all. I don't. There's some misgivings and stuff. Like there's certain things like the
Ewoks.
The Ewoks, exactly. The Ewoks, as much as much as I dislike the Gungans and everything else that's in the newer movies, the Ewoks are. It's just this. But when you think about them, it's like you actually delve into it. Like, where do they get those stormtrooper helmets from? Where do they get that dress for Leia? Oh my God, they eat people. They are cannibals. They're little. They're teddy bear men that eat people and use poison. They're not these. And it's. The Ewoks is much issue, but when 3PO is talking to him and doing the reenacting the first two movies with the that was great. And they're like scared. Ooh, you're like, heads up.
All right, you just changed everything because you pointed out that the Ewoks are cannibals. I'd never taken it that way, and now I'm like, oh God, I think
ruined your childhood.
When look what they were going to eat, Chewie, Luke, and Han.
Yeah, you're right.
And
it makes sense.
And then because they worship in. The only reason Leia wasn't going to be eaten is because Wicket was like say, hey, she's cool. She kept, she kind of kept me alive, kind of thing. She's cool. We're not going to eat her, but the rest of them we're going to eat. And for 3PO, their golden god,
I'm now on the Emperor's side. Let's glass that whole planet. Forget it, man.
Well, there's there's a really good comic story about the Star Wars Tales. These basically not one shot stories, like mini. It's like 3 stories in one issue that came out. during when Dark Horse had the license, when they were just killing it with the Star Wars books. But we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. But there's a story in there. It takes place after Jedi, but it's a stormtrooper that was because the Empire fell apart. Stormtroopers in a bar talking about how the worst encounter he's ever had was on the moon Endor, and he encountered Ewoks. People were kind of laughing at him, Ewoks, and it's like they would use poison, and so the poison, like you see, like your fellow troopers like slowly fall over and die because it's from the stormtrooper perspective that there was getting through their armor. And they're dropping, and then they were coming out of the woods. They were eating other people, and you'd hear the screams in the night because they'd eat them alive sometimes. Oh, and then like it was like this horror story. It's like Vietnam, but with Ewoks and stormtroopers.
Man, I will never see.
But it was written by Garth Ennis. It was written by Garth Ennis, who did Preacher, and of course, Hitman, Preacher, Punisher, a bunch of other stuff. I mean, so it was really well done. But Braylon, when was your first exposure to Star Wars? I mean, was it the original movies, the newer ones? What was it?
So, like, my thing was I saw the prequels first. I think
I'm sorry, man.
It was one of those things in the entirety. I saw the prequels first. Originally, I saw like bits and pieces of Star Wars, but I never saw it in its full entirety. Like, I'd be switching through the channels and it would like be in the middle of like Empire Strikes Back. Then I'd watch it, but I never caught them at the beginning. So I just got bits and pieces. It wasn't until later till I saw the whole movie. But like, I went to go see I didn't see the 2 original prequels. I think I saw those on TV. Was it? What's the third one?
Attack of the Clones, and then Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, that's the one I saw. And I just remember just being bored during the whole scenes with the Republic and all that stuff, like those political scenes when they're in this like little floaty hover pods in this auditorium and all the CG. I was like, oh my God, can someone just pop a lightsaber and something happens, please? I was like, it would just bored me to tears.
That CG did not hold up. Oh, I didn't turn the clock off.
It's okay. You got your wish later on in the film, though. That's a good thing. I mean, with the whole Yoda versus the Emperor.
That was, and it was one of those things. Like, as I think as time's gone by, like, I mean, I still don't think they're good films, but like, there's certain things in there I'll see, and I'm like, that was really well done. In the midst of all the trash in this movie, this scene was pretty cool. And I read the first 2 issues that the Star Wars comic you told me about.
Oh yeah.
And I was just thinking, I was like, what they could have done was with the prequels, they could have had it where Anakin wasn't a kid, right? It could have just been him, a Padawan in training, right? And that was episode 1. Episode 2 was him becoming like a Jedi, Jedi Knight. But also, kind of make it like a tragic story, because that's really what it is. I mean, he ends up becoming, a Sith at the end of it, but you could add it where something happened to push him over the edge, right? Realistically. But I think they tried to do that, but it was just, we hated Anakin so much, from being a whiny crybaby to being a creeper. Like, every time he was talking to Padme, he was like, "Whatever you say, my lady." Like, with these, like, creepy, like, he looked like, he looked like a creep.
Anakin was fedora tipping before there was actually fedoras.
That was like being really creepy, man. And then he's like, everything makes sense, it's coarse, and he gets everywhere. All this. I was like, oh my God, I can't stand this dude. But if they would have, I think if they would have had a better actor and a better script.
Well, Padme was nothing special either. She was a freaking weirdo, so no wonder they kind of clicked.
They're perfect for each other. Match made in heaven.
It's just, that was bad.
What if it wasn't Padme that he was crushing on? What if it was one of her body doubles? Think of that. Like that right there.
That's the conspiracy. You see, that's actually what happened, right?
It's like, like the body double, like, maybe just either, like Padme's tired of like her getting the attention, then he kind of takes it over and is like, oh crap. Well, that theory, like one of those fan theories that Luke and Leia were actually Obi-Wan's kids, because like Anakin was out there doing doing his mopey thing, and like that, and so that original, like not the Obi-Wan killed your father, but Obi-Wan is your father kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
which would make sense. I mean, he's like, you deadbeat. Like, he's like right down the road. He ain't never come by and see me.
I also don't know any woman who wouldn't pick young Obi-Wan Ewan McGregor over Anakin with the long hair and the annoyingness.
The long greasy hair. It was not even just long, like
it's like a Jerry curl type thing going on.
The Jerry, let it so glow.
It looked like a rocker after a show, like some like Nirvana member, like after they've been like sweating and have all this shit all over them. Like that's just what it looked like. It's terrible.
Oh my god.
Man.
So Tim, what was your first exposure to Star Wars?
I don't know. I was very, very young. I can't remember if I watched it on TV first or we had the box set. But I had the next generation of VHS 3 sets, and it's sitting on my shelf, and I watched the shit out of it. And who knows if they're even working properly anymore because they're beat to hell from watching that so much. So that was my experience, and I saw the prequels in the theaters, and I'm almost everybody my age who's into it. That's kind of how they got exposed. So.
Well, that's the thing I saw because I watched the originals. I didn't watch when they re-released the special editions. I missed those, thank God. But I did see.
They were better in theaters. There was different versions in the theater than what they did on the Blu-ray, on the DVDs.
Though in Empire, didn't they do the for Luke when he fell into the Yeah,
that was retarded. Yeah,
that was the worst thing. He's like, like you're gonna join me, and he's like, no, I'd rather die. He decides, I'm out of here. He doesn't do the screaming as he falls into the center of Bespin. But I saw Phantom Menace in theater. See, I had a teacher at the time. I was in middle school. It was eighth grade, 7th or 8th grade. The teacher, his name was Robert Smith. I didn't know of The Cure then, but his teacher's name Robert Smith, and he was a big Star Wars fan. I mean, he was a huge Star Wars fan. He had a stack of books because English and like pretty much the books to choose. Like you could choose books. The first row, the shelf that he built for the classroom was nothing but Star Wars novels.
Oh man, I can't say anything. That's over half of my shelf in my room is Star Wars encyclopedias and stuff.
This dude was hucking it for the school. Like, hey, reading is reading. It's like he was cool for people reading comics too, but reading's reading, and he was a big fan. He's like, Boba Fett, like after Boba Fett crawled out of the Sarlacc pit, and he's going through. I was like, it didn't happen in the movies. It didn't happen, and I was telling him this, and it's like, Boba Fett might have crawled out after in the books, but if I didn't see it on screen, it didn't happen. So I guess I was being Disney before Disney. Which is unfair. Which he was trying to tell me, because of that, tell me like these books are good. I don't know if the Thrawn books, if he was talking about those as well, but all that stuff. But with the Admiral Thrawn and all that, these expanded universe stuff. I remember watching Phantom Menace. I go in, I was excited because I was like, this looks cool, and I'm watching it, and there's bits I really enjoy. I really enjoy some of the atmosphere bits. But there's like of course, Jar Jar brings it down a lot. The Gungans, what else? The Trade Federation talking about the blockade. Like, you could have done a simple thing, like, hey, we're doing like it's kind of a Cuban Missile Crisis in space. You could do that. Like a bunch of ships, like you can't get that. This ship cannot come. If it crosses the line, there's going to be war or something on those lines.
I love the 2-dimensional blockade they had in a nice ring for a 3-dimensional planet.
Yeah,
but it didn't matter because the heroes decided to rush through the strongest part of the blockade instead of just going straight up. Like would.
3-dimensional space, exactly. Yeah. It's not one of these. They didn't think about it. It's like when the Death Star explodes. It's just a very flat explosion. It isn't like a spherical explosion, like how it should be. But whatever.
Yeah, but at least they attacked it from all sides. They weren't like, oh, we got to come in like in a ring. We put all our defenses on the equator, and then the rebels flew right into it.
Yeah,
it wasn't quite like that.
Yeah, there's ways around it, but watching it, and I came away very disappointed. I remember watching it being disappointed, except for the battle in the reactor room with Darth Maul, which I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Fight choreography was cool. I mean, it was passionless, but it definitely was cool to look at.
Yeah, it was like a lot of. It reminded me a lot of just like '90s kind of mid '90s action movies, like post, not then, but now it's like this where hey, there's action for kind of. It didn't have no like soul to it. Like after Qui-Gon dies, then it gets because Obi-Wan goes a little hack crazy and beats Darth Maul. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was solid. It was that little battle was solid, and the rest of it not so much. But it left me with such a poor taste. I didn't bother watching Attack of the Clones in the theaters. I waited until it was like on DVD for rent.
Attack of the Clones was just like okay. The prequel had some cool stuff because you had the fight at the end of the movie. Qui-Gon Jinn, I actually liked. It was just like you felt like there was an interesting character there. It was just the script just didn't allow it.
Yeah, all the elements were in place and they were utilized improperly.
Yeah, and then you had I don't know what to say about Attack of the Clones, man. That's just there was nothing I could really pick out that I liked about that movie.
I like the Camino scenes, like when Obi-Wan goes to investigate the cloning facility and everything, and because till that point you have never seen him in rain. You've never seen like the jet like rain in the Star Wars movies. When you think about it, there has not been rain or anything.
Yeah, I guess that's correct.
And he gets there, and then that battle with Jango Fett, which wasn't that bad. It could have been better, but that could have been interesting.
Well, it probably would have meant a lot more if we'd been more invested in what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's like if Jango Fett was doing some assassinations, not somebody that like some other assassin, like Jango Fett was going around, and they just could not catch him.
I don't understand why. So you're the Emperor, or whatever the hell you're hiring somebody to kill Padme, right? Or you're the Federation, or who the hell hired Jango Fett and Zam to kill Padme? Was that the Emperor, or was that Federation?
Well, it all traces back to him because the whole Federation.
But
so at the end,
all right. So why, if you don't want to get caught, right? And there's always a chance of it failing, especially because she's being blocked by two Jedis. One of them being Obi-Wan, who, the Emperor knows at least that guy's competent enough where you don't send somebody to fuck with him lightly, right? But why would you hire Jango Fett to go do that when you already want him? You want him out of sight. You want to literally pay him to do nothing so that he sits out of sight at the cloning facility. Why would you hire him to go to? Because that's what triggers the whole investigation. But it's you literally have an entire galaxy full of asshole bounty hunters, and you pick the one guy who, if something goes wrong, your whole plan unravels.
Yeah, they could have done somebody else,
right?
IG-88 or something. Have IG-88.
That would have been interesting. They could have followed the money, and they still could have been led back to Camino. But it was why on earth would you You're risking everything.
It's really bad writing because nobody at that point, and the prequels are proof that previously Lucas had his wife was helping go through the scripts as well, not only editing the films with two other editors, but his wife was helping out, and then you had other people, going out, kind of assisting, kind of the production, hey, cut this fat, Lawrence Kasdan, as we've seen, from Force Awakens, the guy isn't some, almighty deity of Star Wars, he knows everything touches gold, and it's not. That's just, what it is. But, sometimes it takes a village, and not all the time, but sometimes it does. And Star Wars, it takes a village because you're pulling from so many different sources. Some stuff could be very stiff if you're not careful, but with
yeah, I mean, if you explain the original trilogy on the surface, it's corny, and if it's acted and shot improperly, it could be really bad.
Exactly,
or at the very least forgettable. But
yeah, it's the New Hope. I mean, I've come back to New Hope being my favorite of all the Star Wars movies because it's there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's character progression. There's character arcs. Han starts out, he's just give me my money. I owe people money. I just want money. I don't care about your little crusade. I'm just into it for the money. And then he shows up and saves Luke's ass. Out of nowhere, there's a character arc. Luke goes from being this, aimless kid to being, aimless kid who's very disbelieving, and he goes and trusting in the Force, and Leia's pretty much Leia, Leia being stubborn and
well, Leia, it's more of a character reveal because in the beginning she's got a little spunk to her because she like shoots a dude, but you're kind of like, oh, she's just some like diplomat or whatever. But then you get to know her and like you realize like her outer persona as a politician is completely different than her personal persona when she's being rescued, and that's why I think people loved her because like she was sassy and she was likable and she was very self-confident, and she also was like kind of the voice of the audience, like, what the fuck are you two guys doing trying to rescue me from this? Like, did you have a plan? Like who, whose idea was this? Like there's a little bit of kind of tongue-in-cheekness to it.
And that's all George Lucas, though. That's what's so great about it. It's like that. He took the best of that script, that original script he did, and compiled it into one film because he didn't know if he'd get to make a second movie, and then or any more movies with that. So then that's why, like Empire, it kind of starts. It's like, well, we got to put them, put our heroes in peril and everything. But New Hope is just a solid, good movie, and it's fun and like I watched it recently. There was a UK broadcast. It was on YouTube. Somebody put it, some lovely human being put it on YouTube. Somebody recorded from VHS on the VHS, like back in 81 or 82. I think it was 81. It was like around Thanksgiving or something, or November something of 81. And it was the original, like this, no alterations and everything, with these British commercials too, which is just so weird. He's like really like very British commercials. But I watched it, and it's just, I remember that's how I used to watch that stuff. Like there would be tracking and everything because you watch the VHS tape so many times, they have tracking issues because of just the wear, on it. Even if it wasn't recorded from TV or anything, but you're watching it, and I'm like, this is just so good. Even if you don't have the backstory with Biggs, Biggs Darklighter and everything, him being a hometown friend of Luke's and everything, and him dying, and this, both of them had these dreams of like joining up and everything.
Yeah, I like that. That was actually one thing the special edition did do, is it just added like a little bit of acknowledgement of Biggs.
Yeah,
that wasn't there in the original. And I saw that, I'm like, why did they cut this? It was literally like 4 seconds, and it made so much more sense for it to be there.
Yeah, it's like Daniel Velez, I don't get why C-3PO and R2 are in the prequels, LOL. They were in there just because they could be in there. That's the only reason. It's like, I'm surprised that Lucas, he didn't, Lucas did have some restraint, or maybe somebody refused to do it, but like not putting Han Solo or the Millennium Falcon in the prequels, which is, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised they didn't do that. Like, that would have been right up the alley, but there's no shame for the most part when they comes to the
there was such that like temptation, I'm sure, to have like a little Han Solo little kid in episode 3, even just in passing. Like I know somebody suggested that, like, oh, he'll be on the ship at the end or some shit, and luckily they walked away from that, but well,
luckily they didn't do it because that would just been extremely poor. But with the prequels and as many issues as I have with them, there is a good film deep down in there. There are pretty good elements. It's a lot of fat that should have been trimmed, but what can you do? I mean, that's what happens when you don't have anybody to tell you no.
Well, I had all the ingredients. They just took a dump in the middle of it and then mixed it up. And we're like, yeah, this is great. it's not like they couldn't have made a good film. They just didn't.
Yeah, all the potential was there. Like there's certain decisions, like the not have actual actors in the clone trooper armor.
Oh god, that looked terrible.
That was I recently rewatched Revenge of the Sith, and it was actually, well, technically rewatched it. It was the Chinese translation dubbed into English. Do not want.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. That's just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it was really rough. It was really rough to look at that because no wonder the actors were having a tough time. I mean, Natalie Portman's not a great actress. She had one good role, and that was The Professional, Leon, and she hasn't done anything good since. So.
That's unfortunately that's correct.
She peaked when she was like 12 years old. That's that. I mean, but if you're going to peak with a movie, let it be Leon. The
Professional's not a bad choice. That's for sure.
Yeah. Everyone, but but then you look at like Hayden Christensen. if you're going for a guy that's this, emotionally closed off block of wood, great. That's you nailed it.
I just don't think. I mean, this is the thing. I haven't seen Hayden in anything else except for the Star Wars movies. So I'm
Jumper, but that's it.
I'm really reluctant to assign him blame, because it's like any blame at all, because it's like I've seen behind the scenes footage of George directing him, and I'm just like scratching my head. I'm like, what is he telling this guy? And then there's like no context to any of the lines, and there's no sets for you to even work on.
Yeah, it's you're
just standing by blue, like just saying random shit. It's like no, and no one told him like, hey, the way you're delivering this is shit. They were like, oh yeah, we're good, let's move on. And it's like, well, I guess if they like that, I'll keep doing that. And it's like, it's not the actor's fault at a certain point,
Yeah, see, I'm willing to give. I mean, it's easy to bust his balls. I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt. Give him a break. I mean, there is potential there. I mean, you saw that potential when he was angry in Revenge of the Sith. Like this, because you got to think. I was like,
I don't know about that. That to me, he came off like a 15-year-old throwing a temper tantrum.
But when you think about it, it's Arrested Development. Like let me paint the picture.
Right.
Okay, you're born into slavery on a desert planet. The only friends you have are local kids who are either slaves themselves or street trash. I mean, pure street trash.
Okay.
A guy shows up when you have these dreams. You build your own protocol droid from scraps, which is just whatever. You have these dreams of getting out of here. You finally do, but your mother has to stay. So this old man takes you, comparatively so, but takes you out of your squalor, and you get to these group of people, and like this old man's telling you you're special. The group of people that he takes you to says, no, you're not special. We're not going to train you. So it's like being rejected multiple times. Having like no father figure. And then having that father figure up, somewhat father figure up and get, killed by Darth Maul. And then you end up, like this, he gets trained reluctantly by Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of another problem, is like this stupid age gap they put between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah.
And like the whole like, oh, we're brothers, and it's like, and you're right, like the kid doesn't have a father figure, and that causes a major developmental issues. But it's like, what? It just seems weird. It's like, I don't know. Like that was just a whole weird relationship. I mean, you're right. Yeah, he doesn't have a father figure, and he kind of, I guess he lashes out because of that. But you don't see any of that in the first one, because he's like a freaking Disney Channel.
Yippee, yippee!
That's what I mean. Like, so like they didn't even set it up in the first one. So I kind of find that excuse a little loose, because it's like there's no. It's like, yes, that's factual, but at the same time, it's like they don't plant the seed at all that he's got issues over not having a father.
You have to read between the lines, and also infer yourself, and kind of like it's almost like head canon in a way. It's almost like that, because it's the only way to kind of rationalize the lack of them doing it themselves. But there are but with Revenge of the Sith, this idea of this woman he loves. It's like he's been having these nightmares. I mean, like I get the idea. It's like this woman that he loves, and she's pregnant with his kids. And then this idea of, like him having visions of her dying, and then seeing it. Like, imagine this. Okay, you're like I said, you're a slave. You're on Tatooine. You are freed from your slavery by this Jedi. Then you're wondering, why didn't the Jedi just come here and why didn't the Jedi? They're supposed to be warriors of good. Why didn't they just go free all the slaves? Why don't we pull like an Indiana Jones Temple of Doom and go free all the slaves throughout the galaxy? No, we get trade or like. So imagine the bitterness and resentment. It's like his mother would have never been in slavery if the Jedi were actually do something. But then Jedi, like, we're very passive. We don't do these things. But but then you say again, that the Empire still allows slavery within the galaxy.
Yeah, well, you're speaking to the problems that all the cool stuff about the Jedi that is introduced in episodes 4, 5, 6, and the stuff that Obi-Wan talks about. That's none of that really, except in maybe a technical sense, exists in the prequels. Like, does Obi-Wan ever mention that they're celibate, or that they're like a bunch of weird space hippies? Like Luke's like, oh, they're great warriors, and they like were like awesome pilots and shit. And he's like, yeah, of course. but like it's almost like an afterthought. In like what does the Jedi Council do? Like they just it's a completely different world than the episodes of 4, 5, and 6, and it's infinitely less interesting. In fact, the Jedi just come off like just a bunch of like cultist assholes, basically.
I think that would have been a cool moment in the towards the end of the movie where they basically, I mean, they kind of said like the Jedi failed, but if they would have just kind of done the thing we're saying, yeah, the Jedi just really screwed up, and a lot of the ways that they had with not being allowed to love or all this type of stuff, the things that they put in order, and say maybe we were wrong, because like the whole time, like you mentioned, the Jedi are they're kind of just jerks, man. Like the whole time when it's like, oh, you've done this wrong, they're like they're think they're better than everybody. They just kind of have this mindset where they're stuck in their ways, and it's kind of like the Sith and the Jedi are like both two extremes, and you kind of need to be in the middle, but neither side sees that. So I think that would have been a cool thing to address in the movies, but they never really did that.
Yeah, they kind of, I don't know what their philosophy is. It's like they don't really have a warrior code, because they don't. I don't know what they're doing. They're not elected, right?
Yeah,
they're just like an oligarch of like, but they also aren't like they're not really a church. It's really weird. Like the whole thing needs to be torn down.
It's very ill defined, and you have these there you got the the younglings, and that's a whole other thing right there. Like Anakin's going around killing kids.
Oh, yeah, because the best way to raise children is take them away from their biological parents.
Yeah,
that's not
indoctrinate them while you're young. Yeah,
exactly. That's not what like dictators do or anything to make sure they raise little psychopaths to do their bidding.
Or religious zealots,
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like maybe that's kind of telling of like how like, hey, like we're not saying they're outright corrupt, but look what they've done. They've got these kids training from early age.
Yeah,
like,
but look how it's painted. Like they're just like, oh, isn't this cute? The little kid's got the lightsaber. Oh my god! Like all the little kids are gonna want to be that kid, and little kids hated it anyway because they don't want to see like a little dorky kid in the lightsaber, because then they realize how stupid it looks. They want to see the badass and like who's older and getting stuff done.
The kids want to be the badass. That's the
exactly.
Thing. And they don't want to be the dorky little kid, but
you don't want to see facsimiles of yourself. You want to see facsimiles of things you aspire to be. That's the nature of fantasy. I don't understand. Well, that's why nobody likes Mary Sue characters.
And speaking of facsimiles, having a character who is not only a fangirl, but can do any and everything, can speak to droids, can speak to Wookiees, can fix the Millennium Falcon, and fly it at the same time, even though she's never been inside it, and just can do everything because the Force has deemed her worthy of being able to do everything. And who's like, oh, who are her parents? Is her parents really Luke, or is she the sister of Han and Leia, the daughter of Han and Leia, the sister of Kylo? Nope, she's just some random girl whose parents sold her for beer money. There you go. Sold her but sold her to who? She's living on her own. There isn't that's the thing. It's who. So they just left her. It's
there's
bad.
So much stuff that wasn't answered in that movie. I honestly think what's the guy, Ryan Johnson? He directed and wrote it. Yeah. He directed and wrote it. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, Phil, and I think he even stated this, he didn't want to deal with any of those plot threads. He wanted it's one of those examples. Like you would have thought, like Disney is like, since they're so strict with keeping the continuity with stuff with Marvel movies, they would have done the same thing with Ryan Johnson. If Ryan Johnson would have pulled that with like a Marvel movie, like the Avengers, like, nope, we're not addressing any of the stuff that happened in Civil War and Winter Soldier. I don't care about anything.
Thanos killed in a 5-minute scene, and that's just gonna end the.
Yeah, Thanos would have died, and then he'd do something, and then make Carol like people like Disney be like, no, you're not doing that. But for whatever reason, with Marvel's, Disney's okay with the thing with Star Wars, but it's one of those things where they say they want to do something new. It's almost like with the comics. They want to do something new, but they instead of doing something new, they try to screw around with the stuff that's already been in place and established. If you wanted to do something new, make a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic anthology movie, and then just kind of keep in with the continuity with the 7, 8, and 9 or whatever.
I guess maybe you could tie the two together. Like, what the hell did Rogue One have to do with Return of the Jedi? Not Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry, The Last Jedi. Like, I thought they were gonna at least like tie something in. Remember the Knights of Ren? Remember those guys? And they were like the same as the people from Rogue One who all died.
Never bring it up. Never.
And it's like they never like. It looked like they were trying to do something, and I was like, okay, well, at least let's see the setup has been poor, but at least the ideas are there. But then like,
nope.
No, it's just right in the trash can.
Yeah, nope. It's just like what they did. Exact opposite of somewhere. It's like with the I fought with your father during the Clone Wars, and like, oh, what's the Clone Wars? That sounds cool. And like they actually
exactly.
War. And then it's like this, Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. I'm like, okay, so this one badass former Jedi pupil and his group of other former Jedi, did they betray him? Did he betray them? Are they members of were they the Imperial Guard they fight? I guess, in the throne room and
that being explored would have been a much more interesting story than what we got. Just the explanation of that.
Well, it's just bad writing. It's bad writing, bad storytelling in general. Because you had all these plot, like this, what do you call the mystery box, which is that J.J. Abrams bullshit with the whole, like, it's a mystery within a mystery within a mystery. Like, fuck Abrams, fuck Lindoff, and the rest of those people that worked on Lost and all that shit.
It entertains people the first time, and then now it's just like, and now they're clashing with a conventional thing like Star Wars, and it's just like, I don't know. It's such a rigid philosophy. It seems like.
Well, the biggest thing was like they introduced who are who Mary Sue's parents, who are Rey's parents. Like how did Maz get Luke the Skywalker lightsaber? Oh, that's a story for another time. Well, it doesn't matter anymore because it gets ripped in half. It gets ripped in half in Last Jedi. We don't find out how. They have enough time to put that sequence in where she's like fighting somebody with a rocket pack or whatever. Like that sequence in the movie, and like you need to go to this person to get some help. Even if they just said, we're going to cruise by the planet at slow speed, drop people off, and then the ship will keep going. And they'll follow the ship, and we'll be able to get to the planet, no problem. If they'd have said that, no problems. No, they got to keep it secret because of plot reasons. Because don't question the woman. I was like, oh, give me a break. What is this shit? It's just bad. It's one of those things when you're looking at a film and you're seeing it kind of like money and time and people being wasted on film, and it hurts. It's not they're hurting Star Wars. No, it's just like, they had so much potential. There was so much potential that they could have done something really good with this. I set up that Rey is the real evil. That Kylo, he's been trying to do horrible things to become this evil personification to keep the evil from going into anybody else. Like basically, kind of like realizing that the dark side.
Are you suggesting that the character should have motivation and purpose?
Yes, of course. Of course, but I guess that's against the.
Yeah, I mean, who would have ever thought that you needed to develop your characters and write them well? It's crazy.
Yeah, you're dealing with a company that, that I try not to jump on that bandwagon. All that
it's hard sometimes, man. It really is.
The Force is female, and I'm like, I'm
out.
Yeah. I'm like. I thought the Force was within everything. The Force is with us all. It's not just. It's like, give me a break. It's in every living thing. So, plants, trees.
At this point, let's just go back to the midichlorians.
Yeah, the midichlorians made more sense than what happened. Like the idea of these microscopic organisms and like getting enough of them together.
I'm just upset they assumed the Force's gender. That's all.
Did you just assume gender to the Force?
They just assume, yeah. That's...
But okay. Think of it this way: the midichlorians, and I got some relative heat for that because, of course, why wouldn't I? But okay, so let's say the midichlorian content. Okay, the Jedi, they're not the most accurate people in the world, correct? Like, look what they've been doing. They've been, disputing trade negotiations. They've been abducting kids and training them from early age. They're clearly not the most.
They did notice that the president of the Republic, or whoever he is, was the Sith Lord, despite the most powerful Jedi's in the galaxy in the building. In
the same room,
away.
in the same
room with them,
multiple, and it's like he's able to hide it from them. But let's say, okay, because they say that like the Force is within everything. It binds us, it guides us, everything. It's within every organism. Like some plants and trees, air, it's you, me, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the midichlorians are not what gives people the ability to tap into the Force, but they're just members of the. They're there. They're within the Force themselves. So let's say the midichlorians. This is a crazy theory that because Palpatine and what was it, the other one? Plagueis. They supposedly created Anakin, the virgin birth within Shmi Skywalker, right? So what if they were to organize these midichlorians, these microscopic organisms, to make their way to Shmi Skywalker, so that this, so she would become pregnant, inexplicably, this virgin birth with this child that will shake up and destroy the Jedi. Like one kid will destroy the Jedi. But it's not just going to be the kid, it's going to be the Jedi's own actions that are going to destroy them as well, by taking the kid in, going against their rules, being the useless pricks that they are. They're going to destroy themselves.
That's the irony of it.
And what if the midichlorian content in the other people, maybe at one time, like the Jedi were just as, maybe they were much more like those adventurers, like they'd actually go out and do things and get things done. But the Sith were like, we got to be smarter than this. We can't just, fight them head on, because they would do that that's what they used to do. Like they fight the with the Old Republic, like you had an army of Sith and an army of Jedi, and like it's stalemate. So okay, we're going to consolidate our power, and you almost use biological warfare. The midichlorians have been maybe they've been using the midichlorians almost like weakening the resolve of the Jedi. Like, oh, you have this much midichlorian content, you have that much midichlorian content. Maybe it's like, they classifies you as a Jedi, but they're reading it wrong. Maybe it's looking at it, it's like, oh yes, you're like a Jedi now. It's like, no, but it's more like, hey, you're manipulative. You're going to be manipulated by this group of people that have been manipulated secretly by the Sith. That's just a crazy little theory. It's like they were already over generations were kind of being weakened by the Sith's midichlorian engineering or something.
Maybe, but I always thought the best retcon would probably be just the midichlorians are creatures that are, like microscopic organisms that are attracted to, basically attracted to the cells of creatures who are high with have high influence with the Force, essentially. Yeah. So you just make it more of just like, it's like it's something they can quantitatively measure, really. Like it doesn't mean everything, but it means like, the fact that they are able to feed off that or something, and that's why they attract them.
So pretty much like the midichlorians is like part of the Force, but it's not the Force aspect of the Force.
It doesn't even have to be part of this Force. It could even be biological. It could just be some sort of thing that evolved to be attracted to, like some sort of symbiote, essentially.
Or like a firefly being attracted to, or a moth being attracted to a flame. It's like
like enough lumens will attract more, bugs in the area, and that's kind of how you would measure it. Like it would just be like a simple thing to measure it. But they made that stupid mistake, which he should have just corrected, and he could have corrected by just saying that Qui-Gon was just trying to explain it in a way that. No, he just should have never had Qui-Gon basically say that was the reason you have Force powers, because the midichlorians give you Force powers. It's dumb, and it's like, okay, so that's quantifiable. Okay, well, then why aren't you injecting midichlorians into other people, and then like nobody's tried to cultivate that? Like, what are you talking about?
It would have been interesting to see, though. You'd actually see these like souped up midichlorian infused Jedi
it would be like the nanomachines from like Metal Gear, where you'd be like, a shot of the midichlorians right near your neck.
Okay,
there you go.
or was it Senator Armstrong on top of a
exactly,
throwing railroad cars at people?
Well, I mean that would have changed things completely, because that wasn't really the philosophy that the Force was supposed to be, but like that's what he turned it into, and it's like functionally wise, it's I don't know, I don't understand. Like, he should know his own damn story. Why did he do that? Like, did he do that just because he was like, I got to do something that's gonna make all the fan theories completely wrong? Or understanding, like, oh, you don't understand Star Wars. I understand Star Wars. I'm the one who wrote it, so I'm gonna make it not make sense, but it makes sense because now it's canon. It's like I don't understand that.
Part of it could be because I know he said he was working on the prequel stuff back in like the '80s and everything, and the rumor that the reason you haven't seen the original trilogy, like especially when they did that last pressing of the original movies and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When before they did the special editions, that him and his wife divorced, and because California, it's like especially a lot of the divorce laws in California, if you were married to someone and they say you were married to them while they got big,
it's like she owns half the IP of the original,
exactly, because they can
Prince
do that
or something like that, because she's the one who was the editor.
Well, and also the original concepts too, because you got to think it's like the idea of her being there and help kind of coming up with certain things. But if you change it enough, like with the special editions, keep changing it and changing it and changing it, adding more rocks in front of R2-D2 and New Hope, and adding more CGI crap, and adding Vader going no, and then throwing Emperor down into the reactor core. Yeah, that right there, you change it enough, and you don't release the originals, where you don't, if the originals aren't out there, you don't have to give her a cut. But also, if you change it enough, percentage-wise, you don't have to give her a cut.
I find that a little dubious, because you're telling me she wouldn't just countersue in a California court and they wouldn't uphold that?
Possibly, but the thing about it is, it'd be one of those.
It seems like a lot of he'd be better off paying her off right off the bat.
No, I think she got the money to begin with. She already got money, but any further. It's
no, but that's what I mean, though. Like to buy the full rights from her probably would have been cheaper in the long run than trying to make all those changes to the movie. To
some people get divorced, man. It gets really bloody, and it ain't that simple. It's like,
doesn't he have attorneys? Doesn't he have cold-hearted attorneys who would tell him that that's a better idea?
But that's the thing, though. It's probably a matter of pride. It's I don't want to give her any who knows, man. People are very dumb. People are very stupid when it comes to that kind of stuff. But. That would be. I know they released the when they did the special. When they released the prequels, they also did the released on DVD the original trilogy, but it was a transfer from the Laserdisc, so it doesn't look as great. Isn't as clear, but to see.
I didn't know that existed. I'll have to pick that up if I see it.
It's like $200 all three.
All right, fuck that. All right, never mind.
But
so
you have
basically what I get from this is that when someone gets a divorce, we all suffer.
Yeah,
Joke
pretty
aside,
much. That's what, at the very least.
We
that's
all suffer. All the kids suffer in the divorce.
Well, I kind of feel bad, and I feel bad for Lucas to the point where you had the guy didn't. You got to think. He did. He did THX 1138. He did. He did American Graffiti, and then he did Star Wars, and then, he made so much money, and money, power corrupts absolutely. And you got to think, what's more important, a story or the product? And he's he went for the product. If they'd killed off Han, the whole, this idea that actions have consequences. Han skipped out on his deal with Jabba, and Jabba, Boba Fett delivers him. They get to the palace or something and finds out Han's broken into pieces. The carbonite's been cracked. He's dead.
So what you're saying is Jabba the Hutt is an allegory for George Lucas's wife.
Jeez, man, you need to psychoanalyze
them.
No. Using that logic proved me wrong, because I think that you might be getting onto something now.
Well, maybe prove me.
We're going to the dark place.
But at the end of the day, they didn't. Of course, and Han stayed alive, and he did nothing. For the rest of Return of the Jedi, nothing. He did nothing. He tricked the with the rest of the rebels, he tricked the Empire troops for coming out. Hey, we need some help out here, and they open up the doors, and he's like, "Yeah, gotcha." But that's it. That's all he did at the end of the film. I mean, and that's it. He
was just auxiliary ground forces, effectively.
Exactly, and because there was that whole thing between Cassidy and Lucas. They wanted, Luke to wander off, Han to die, and Luke to go try to find his sister, and his sister wasn't Leia, but they had that, Luke was kind of facing the dark side a little bit, which would have been interesting. The idea of this, where he was embracing it, and like the Yoda was saying in like Empire, absolutes. That's the way of that's the dark side talking, whatever, like that. So it's like the dark side deals in absolutes or whatever. And I'm like, but you just said there, if you're dealing in absolute, so it's just the hypocrisy is already there, like this idea of like, oh, this could be only evil or good. But Miranda says, hey, it makes sense why they were in the prequels, other R2-D2 and C-3PO. The stories were supposed to be told from their point of view of the droids. I mean, that would have been interesting, but the one thing they never focused on, and everybody forgets, Wedge Antilles was the original owner of R2-D2 and C-3PO.
No.
R2-D2.
It was Captain Antilles, who I believe is his father.
No, I thought Wedge was. I thought it was Wedge.
Wedge is his son.
Really?
Because you see him at the end of episode 3, even, and it's not Wedge. He addresses the guy as Captain Antilles. That's Wedge's father.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense
because they were under his care or whatever, and then they end up under Luke's care. So
okay, that makes sense now. I see you cleared something up. I learned something new every day. Because I always thought it was like, why did because there's so many things introduced in the newer films. The new, I don't dare call it a trilogy, but the old man in the village, Jakku, the Max von Sydow, which played too bad. I was wishing he was like Ming the Merciless or something. How great would that have been? Like this kind of Flash Gordon, because that's what that the Star Wars book basically is. That is a J.W. Rensler, who does a lot of the Star Wars, mostly the books dealing with like the making of Star Wars, and also the character Rensler from Tron Legacy is kind of named after. He took the original George Lucas script for the Star Wars when it was very Flash Gordon-y, and there's more cyborgs and women getting punched.
Yeah, C-3PO was like a used car salesman, and I think Han was like a slimy green alien.
He was Swamp Thing. He was Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Like that was great. I was like, how cool would that be? It's like that, right? It's great. I love that. And like you see the Star Killer family. It's the father and his 2 sons and everything, and like it was so good. And it was Mike Mayhew doing the art, but yeah, it's like that kind of Flash Gordon-y Star Wars, like how much more fantasy, like high fantasy a little bit with like it looks like it feels like one of those paintings of from like the 80s albums or something. It's like that kind of
It's the mix. Well, Flash Gordon almost does like. Not really steampunk, but like I don't know what you would call it, but like World War II punk or whatever, kind of the equivalent. And I think what his initial aesthetic was like fantasy settings, except with like all this other magic shit like you normally see in like the Sword and Sandals movies. But let's just actually have it like in space, and so there's like alien shit. And I think that was his initial aesthetic. And whoever walked him down from that, thank God. But I know what he was going for, so. And it's because of Flash Gordon, pretty much.
Yeah, it's like, when you look at, the problem with the newer movies, that none of them actually feel like a Star Wars movie. They've taken the name, they've taken certain things, but they don't feel like Star Wars. Star Wars, at the end of the day, it is medieval, like sword and sorcery mixed with World War II. That's basically what it is. It's like the Death Star is basically a giant battleship that comes out of the fog. It's like a castle. It's like a floating castle. And it comes and goes. Nobody knows where it is. It destroys things from a distance. Hey, we gotta take it out.
It's the enemy's Wunderweapon.
Exactly. It's like, the only weakness is it's smokestacks. We got to put one bomb through the smokestack and blow it up. And that was actually what it was based off of. This
Mm-hmm.
this bomb went to a big old battleship or whatever smokestack, and then blew the ship up from the inside.
The Bismarck battle, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was the Bismarck. Yeah, and then they got all the World War II footage with the dog fights and everything, and that's with the TIE fighters and the X-wings.
Well, there's a I don't remember. I think it's Memphis Belle. I believe that's the movie. That's about a B-17, and there's a scene where they get jumped by some Messerschmitts, and not that it's exact, but the way it's cut and the pacing, and the guys are on the 50 cals trying to shoot off down these Messerschmitts as they're swarming around them. Like the music, the pacing, the angles, it's pretty much straight out of the TIE fighter scene in the Millennium Falcon. Yeah, like you can see the direct comparison.
Oh yeah, because people forget. Tarantino ain't the first person to take other things and borrow them heavily. It was George Lucas. George Lucas
Hidden
did it
Fortress,
first.
Seven Samurai, a whole bunch of Akira Kurosawa films and everything else.
Oh yeah,
Gordon, yeah, everything. I mean,
well, everybody takes something from somebody else on the way back up.
Yeah, so. Some people take a lot more than others.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it's like some people just take they'll take a little bit here and there. They pinch it with their index and their thumb. Lucas, Tarantino, they take their both arms and just grab it and carry it off.
I think Tarantino's worse, honestly. I think
Tarantino is worse because at least George Lucas was able to do it, and you had you didn't have the how do I fill in? I don't really know how to fill. Let's just have him talk about whatever.
Yeah, he likes the smell of his own farts. You can tell by the way Tarantino writes. He doesn't know when to cut a scene because he thinks like, oh, well, this dialogue is so brilliant. Some of it's good, but it's not good in context. It's like, yeah, anybody could sit there and hammer out, a 2-hour conversation with clever dialogue because it's fiction. You know what I mean? Like it's not a real conversation, and then they don't cut the scenes to be tight. It's just I don't know why he's praised as a genius. I don't get it.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction, the only reason that movie stands out is because he didn't know how to start or end a movie, so he just edited it to be, had it edited to be, let's how quirky. And
well, it's dripping with atmosphere. That's really what that movie has going for it, is it's dripping with atmosphere, and then there's a couple of memorable lines because of the fact that John Travolta and Sam Jackson are great. But, I mean... It's just weird. It's the thing everybody's seen though. But I think if you try to critically match it up against, top 10 movies ever, I'd be like, it doesn't really it only stands out in how weird it is, not in actually how it's structured or what it does.
Yeah, like my two favorite Tarantino films are actually not directed by him. Natural Born Killers and True Romance. But that's either here or there.
My favorite of his, which I think is actually still great. Is Desperado. It's cheesy as hell, but I freaking love it. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh my god, that's my favorite is Desperado. So I don't hate everything Tarantino does. I just don't understand why. It's to say it's become worse over time. Where like, oh, we expect the violence to be over the top, so therefore it goes, it's over the top violence for the sake of being over the top to the point where it's no longer shocking because it doesn't have anything to contrast itself against. And then the dialogue, we expect it to be, clever and witty and quirky, but now it's like, it's no longer like that when it's 2 hours of it. Like Inglourious Basterds, that was
a chore. Same thing with
it was a chore. Like every scene was just like, let's come up with these really detailed characters and have them spill everything that makes them interesting, air quotes, in a 15, 25 minute diatribe that they're just going to go on. It's
yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but I mean, hey, we get what we get. But speaking of Sam Jackson, Mace Windu.
Oh man,
it's
the way they killed
underused.
him. Revenge of the Sith was just like the biggest, like just slap in the face, man. I was just like, wait, what? Why? Why would you do that? And then he gets electrocuted, and then Anakin just blindsides him and knocks him out the window.
He gets hand cut off and gets electrocuted. But it's this. It's so stupid. It's so badly done.
What the hell was that shark movie he was in where
Deep Blue Sea?
Deep Blue Sea.
I think I'd actually kind of like that movie a lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That one, he still has a more dignified death stepping up in that one than he does in the trilogy, because at least there's not like 3 movies building up for how much of a badass this guy is, and then you never see it. And the little whiny kid who's the opposite of the badass Sam Jackson pushes him out of window and he dies. That's just like
decisions were made.
Why?
Bad decisions.
Everybody, they spend time like showing all the other Jedi getting like murdered in like horrible, but yet kind of mildly creative ways, right? That whole montage, and like I expected like Sam Jackson to be like the last guy remaining, and like he stands behind and gets shot like 30 times, but kills like 100 something troopers or something. Like I expected some sort of like, an epic death for the guy who's kind of been kind of a fan favorite.
Yeah, touted as, and the only reason he's fan favorite it's because of Sam Jackson. Like, I think I was talking. I can't remember who I was talking with. It might have been Daniel on Twitter. It's like how the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury is a better Nick Fury than the Sam Jackson Nick Fury, because Sam Jackson Nick Fury is just Sam Jackson with an eye patch. Yeah. That's it. It's just there's no character there. So the problem is Sam Jackson, like he was the only thing. He's like really the only thing in Django I actually enjoyed, because he's actually playing other than Sam Jackson. He was not playing himself, but you have these actors, and then you really do nothing with them. I mean, like Qui-Gon, wasted opportunity. Mace, wasted opportunity. Speaking of wasted opportunity, I was at a comic convention and at Heroes Con, Adam Hughes is always there, and Adam Hughes is like he's known for doing that bad girl art and good girl art and everything like that. Women with big breasts. He can't draw an ass to save his life, though. If you look at Adam Hughes' art, all his women have pancake asses. It's no joke. It's like he clearly is a breast man, but there's a guy there that says yes. He had a T-shirt gloating how I had Adam Hughes draw Kit Fisto or something, and that Kit Fisto is that the green alien from the prequel movies. Like, you have Adam Hughes who draws a pretty woman, and you waste your money drawing a stupid Star Wars prequels character. You should have your money taken away from.
Did he at least give Kit a decent rack or?
Probably not. That's probably like it's beyond model. But it's just god. But the one upside with the prequels, the prequel movies spawned the Battlefront games, the first 2 Battlefront games, and Battlefront 2 was the best out of the 2.
Yes, it was the peak of the kind of the gameplay design you could get out of the power of a platform like the PlayStation 2, and it was just on the edge of basically being like the hardware just wasn't quite there to make it what it could be. Which is why the new Battlefronts are such a disappointment, because they have the blueprint. All they needed to do was just remake Battlefront 2 and update it so that the lasers move at a proper speed, and so that the net code is better, and so it's not then some of the stuff isn't as squishy. It's all they needed to do. It's all we wanted was basically HD retextured, maybe a few more maps, better unlock trees, stuff that the new hardware can handle. And it's like I feel like that's
a lot of stuff with Disney in general. Like it's different when you know something like, okay, this is going to be bad, but I think it's more frustrating when it's something, this should be a slam dunk. Like, you shouldn't even try very hard, and this should just work.
Exactly. You're dealing with it's like, don't fix what ain't broken, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to fix what ain't broken. The original Battlefront 2, I was playing it, and like, you had this. You could play throughout the story mode. Basically, you played through the prequel story all the way.
Story mode was good.
Yeah, that was really good. Story
was really good. That surprised me. The 501st. Yep. Oh my god! And they fixed why the clones are not all the same clone anymore. Like there was so much like deep insight you got. Like
they would start defecting, and like you'd have to start. Okay,
it was the defection, and that was what caused them to decide to get people who weren't all the same. That way, they didn't have the loyalty to the there wasn't like we're all the same clones, so there's that loyalty. It was only loyalty to the Empire.
Yeah, it's like and then the ship battles in space. How cool is that? Like, you go in and you get one of the Lambda shuttles. You go from one ship to another, and then you go in there and destroy the reactor room or destroy their control room and all this and that. Like, and it was so much fun. And like, you got to fight room to room. Like, this is what Star Wars should be.
Yeah, and and that was the problem. Was like the problem was with those was you played them to death, and then there became finite strategies you had to pursue in order to win. but it was only because the limit of the hardware limited the size of the map. If you had been running that on a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 4 with modern hardware, you could have much, much, much larger sprawling maps, much more different entry points on the destroyers and on the rebel ships and stuff like that. And it would have been closer to like Battlefield 2142 with the airships. Like, it would have been closer to that, but with like awesome space battles. Like, it's not hard, guys. You did 90% of the work back in 2005 or when the hell the game came out. You know, like, it's killing me. The design is there, the concept is there. They just needed to execute it.
Because I played the newer Battlefront. I played that one, and I played the beta for Battlefront 2, the newer ones. And I paid like $5 for Battlefront, the first EA offering, and it was just not good. There was like basically air superiority where you're just flying around TIE Fighter, X-Wing, and it's boring. There's nothing happening. It's just it's whatever. There's no soul to it. There's no spirit to it. Who cares? It's a who cares game. But yeah, it's like I'm looking at these games. I'm looking at what that 1313 looks so good. This like cover based shooter, everything. I was like, okay, so this will probably be Boba Fett, but this like like I think it was supposed to be M-rated or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. Yeah. And then like of course they cancel it.
Like a good friend of mine, I will not mention his name. He worked on that game. Let's just say, from what he was telling me and from some stuff he showed me, it was going to be unfucking believable, and they axed it.
Well,
it's a tragedy.
And that's one of those things. Like, they do that kind of stuff. That happens a lot, but it doesn't get out there because that right there, it got out there because it was Star Wars. Like that right there. It's like that. There are people that love that kind of stuff, and if they'd gone that route for a movie or something, like actually, make it interesting. Like make something like I think they said they might actually bring it back. Who cares at this point? It's still
probably just screw it up. A whole bunch of DLC microtransactions. Be a different game.
Well, if it's EA, that's a guarantee. The microtransactions, dear God, they can't help themselves.
Spend $120 in a game, man, just because of microtransactions. Because I think that actually happened. Wasn't that for the first game? Like, I was hearing people that were reviewing this game was like, don't get it, man. You buy the game for $60, and then you'll want to play this map, and you can't play this map because you need to get it with DLC or get the season pass. That's like another $30. Exactly. If you want these skins or these decks, he's like, dude, like by the time you're done, you've almost spent like 180, almost $200 on this game for stuff that should have been included with it.
Yep.
You're not even buying a complete game most of the time because the day one updates and everything. And so with Star Wars, what I want from a Star Wars game is I would like to play, like honestly, like every possible, I want a Star Wars game that covers battles from even the Old Republic, the Republic, the Empire, post-Empire. I want small skirmishes. I want big battles. I want ship to ship. I want that kind of stuff. I want to be able to do pretty much anything.
Well, there's a huge design challenge with that. I thought Battlefront 2 struck a good balance. But there's a major difference in what makes a very good, very detailed close quarter combat game versus what makes a grand scale vehicular battle game. So I'm very resistant to that because it's like if you're kind of you know what I mean, you'd have to commit everything and go like Battlefield 2 style of scaling if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering like I remember playing Battlefront 2 and how you can get an AT-AT, and you're just going through and like to take out the shield generators and stuff, and I see a snow speeder coming, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot where it's going to be, and I blow it up. Like, yeah, that was great. That
was the best feeling, and that pissed people off so much. And I would get nasty messages, and I would just say, "Learn how to fly."
It's fun.
I didn't have that problem, when I was in a snow speeder. But there you go.
It's good.
It's fun, man.
Get good, yeah. It's called flanking. When they flew straight at them in the movie? Yeah, that was a bad idea. Don't repeat that.
Watch the movie.
The movie showed you how not to do it.
Watch the movie to learn how to fly.
Exactly. Or learn how not to, I guess.
Yeah, you're dealing with. I mean, you're dealing with certain things like the movies, the comics, the shows, toys. I never really had the toys myself. I never really picked them up. I just didn't see a
giant
point
bag of
because
them.
they were so expensive. Even because at that point, like Star Wars is like like when I was a kid, it was like X-Men toys for me. I could have got some Star Wars stuff, like usually from like the flea market and everything. But even there, they were expensive. And I mean, probably could have got some ones that were expensive then, but then got even more expensive because.
Well, I never had the old '70s ones or anything. Like I always had those new ones they came out with in the '90s.
Mhm.
That's what I had, was pretty much that giant set, which I have in a big bag upstairs. I'm sure if I hadn't opened any of it, it would be worth something. But like I played the shit out of it. I had the Millennium Falcon. I had an X-wing. I have a snow speeder, a TIE fighter. I had the advanced TIE fighter. The TIE fighter was like, it was scaled to the figure, so things like huge. It's like bigger than my laptop, and there was a button on the back you hit, and it was supposed to be like the thing exploding, and instead it just ejected the wings like left and right, like all the way across the room.
Oh shit!
And I must have I mean, yeah, that looked great, but like you play with that enough times, like you beat the shit out of it, because like it's literally asking you like hit this button and drop this thing, and it's just gonna blow to pieces. So.
Maybe keep it from happening. Like you want one that's a fixed wing that doesn't do that, so you don't have to worry about losing.
You know what they needed to do? Like they needed like to make this stuff out of like more rubberized PVC.
Yeah.
Because like everything, there was like two types of plastic. There was that like either like rubber stuff that was not flexible, but like wouldn't really move, but like you couldn't do fine details with it, or was that like hard plastic molding, which always looked the best, but you really had be careful when you're playing with it, because if you whacked it hard enough, it would snap.
Yeah, snap, crack, and you'd have like at the very least you'll have a hole in it, because especially at the corners would pop off because like you bump it into something or whatever. Okay, a hairline fracture you didn't see, then you do it again maybe a couple more times or whatever. Accidentally.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That reminds me. The ATST exploded as well. You hit the button and the legs would move like to walk, because it wasn't really great designed. But like you would hit that and be walking, and then like if you hit the wrong button, which was next to it, the whole top would just explode and eject, and the legs would go flying.
I never got like that's not there. That you went to now that would be what $50-$60 figure designed for adults.
Yeah, that's you can get Star Wars figures cheap now, but it's at the store. But like nobody wants like 5 Rose Ticos, because that's what's in stock. Like, nobody wants the new characters.
Nobody nope.
Like the kids don't give a shit. It's been overexposed, and and then also like the speculators buy stuff up now.
Yeah, they buy stuff up and they put it on eBay, charging $60 for a figure you can get for $15 at the local Walmart. It's just oh my god, it's like that's the speculator market, the collector's market's kind of ruined things. It's I like to read stuff, I like to actually put my hands on stuff, and I was lucky enough I was able to buy. I'm a big fan of the Marvel Super Specials. There were a series of magazine-sized comics. Sometimes they're magazine-sized, sometimes they're smaller, but they were basically comic adaptations of movies, and they had everything from like they had Jaws 2, they had Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but they also had Empire and Jedi. Now, both Empire and Jedi had the better art. You had like Al Williamson, you had a Bill Sienkiewicz cover. That's this beautiful cover. It's like the Luke with the green lightsaber with black outfit, Vader, Emperor, like everything. Chicken walkers, it's a movie poster quality image, and the interior is great. It's like 60-page comic, beautifully done. And then I also had the 2 oversized, like the tabloid, like the big old the Treasury edition of the adaptation of the original Star Wars, A New Hope.
That's cool.
Which those things at one time were hard to come by, but thankfully, this is the kind of the proliferation of them in the market. So everybody else was trying to they were putting them on the market, but people were trying to sell them, so the prices went down. So I was able to pick mine up. So I was happy, and I went through, read them, loved them. They're really good. They're really well done. But there's certain Star Wars comics, like they introduced stuff like Jackson, the Green Bunny Rabbit. The Bunny Rabbit Bounty Hunter, which most people don't know it existed unless you read the comics. But I love it. I love this idea of this, because it's not taking itself too seriously, and it's not as to me. It's not as weird as the slug-looking alien or the Dog Man, the Dog Man co-pilot.
Which one was that? The
with Chewie. Oh yeah,
with Chewie.
Chewie, Dog Man. He looks like a Dog Man. He doesn't really look. He doesn't look.
Is this in the movie? Oh, you're saying Chewie is the Dog Man.
Chewie is like Dog Man.
Okay.
Because he looks more like like one of those the little yip yip dogs, But but that's the thing with Star Wars. It's like he's a space Sasquatch. That's what he is. Space Sasquatch, which is funny. There's a one of the I think it was a Star Wars, one of the Star Wars stories, I believe. It was one of the the same kind of that the one about Endor, the stormtrooper on Endor talking about the Ewoks and everything. But there's one. It's called I think it's called the Great Unknown or something. It was Indiana Jones and Short Round, and they go to the Pacific Northwest, and they come across the Millennium Falcon. And they go into Millennium Falcon and
wait, this exists? This crossover exists?
This comic, yes.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Indiana Jones goes in the Millennium Falcon and sees Han. He's got arrows in his chest, like he's been shot by Native Americans. And then they get outside, and there's like Sasquatch. There's they're like, oh, there's Sasquatch, and then you find out the Sasquatch is just Chewie.
Oh my god!
It's a great comic. It's a great little story. It's like it takes place after I guess probably after Temple of Doom, but it's so dumb, but it's so fun. It's like I guess they got off course. Like they went through because that was Han's warning about, hey, if we don't put the right coordinates in, we'll go into a star. It's like say they end up going through time because long time
through
ago,
time in a different galaxy,
or they just it happened to be Star Wars actually happened like in the 1800s or something. It's like that kind of thing. Like, that is a long time ago, like 100 years. That's a long time ago, but galaxy far, far away. But it was a really fun, stupid story. I mean, there's like really interesting stuff like that with the comics because you had the Infinite stuff, but you also have the Star Wars Tales, and you had Tag and Bink, which apparently Tag and Bink are making an appearance in Solo, which that kind of hurts a little bit because Tag and Bink are really fun.
They're I don't know. Have they given up on that movie? Because the advertisements I've seen have been extremely lame. They've all been the same.
Got rid of his blaster. That was dumb.
Yeah, they did that to the posters, which is just like wading into a whole. Like basically, anybody who's pro 2A, they're going to see that and they'll be like, "Yeah, virtue signaling nonsense. You're ruining my favorite bounty hunter. I'm not going to go see it." So they've already alienated most of their audience. And overseas, they've done this to appease people who don't give a shit. Like they're not, you're just making the character look less interesting. Like he stares at this camera like with a constipated look on his face. That's his. Like in his poster, Han, he looks like he just like shit himself, and he's like concerned. That's the look on his face.
Okay, have you seen the movie Hail Caesar? Have either of you seen the movie Hail Caesar?
No, I have not.
Was that the George Clooney one?
That's the one with George Clooney. It's the Coen brothers.
I've seen a little bit of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
The actor that's playing Han Solo, Aldrich Ehrenreich, whatever. I thought he was some kind of foreign actor because with a name like that, but apparently he's American. Okay. The guy in the movie plays this cowboy. He's like this kind of stuntman cowboy, and he goes from this set where he's filming this like cowboy western thing to go be this actor in this kind of like a Breakfast with Tiffany's, kind of romance, kind of whatever movie. Mm-hmm. So he's there, and this director is like basically saying you can't act. You're a bad actor. You're really bad. He's a bad actor. The guy, he's like, he can't carry a film. And it's hilarious because that's the same actor. This is the Eldritch, the guy playing Han Solo.
That's pretty meta.
It's meta, man, because they had to do the same thing. They had to do, they had to get him like acting lessons. They get an acting coach. They had to refilm the original movie.
They reshot the whole thing. And here's the one kicker. Speaking of cool dudes. Billy D. Williams is like one of the coolest, smoothest dudes I've ever seen, at least in cinema. Exactly, like he is like one of the coolest, smoothest dudes ever. And you replaced him. Not that he could be in Solo because it's a prequel, but you chose Donald Glover.
Childish.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Who's a 35-year-old dude? He is like 35 years old. He looks like a child. I've said this before. No,
he looks like a high school student cosplaying as Lando.
Exactly.
That's what he looks like, and it looks awful.
What happened to men? That's the thing. Like, look at men nowadays in film. I'm not manly. I'm not this rugged, whatever. I'm man-like. But
Billy D probably populated Cloud City himself. Like, this guy doesn't look like oh my god, like he looks like it's just a little child in a costume. It looks awful. I don't like imaging, people. Imaging, it's important. You're going to take these characters, and all you've got is their image because you've completely ruined all trust, and then that's what you go with. It's like
that's all you have, really. I'm about to say, Braylon, if you get you a Jerry curl wig, man, you would look more like Lando than
You would. You probably would.
And you sound, and you honestly sound more like your voice is not like, because Lando's was not this super deep voice or anything. He wasn't some Barry White, but he had like this confidence.
No,
he was smooth.
Donald
Glover is smooth. Donald Glover, I've seen him multiple times. The guy is not that smooth. I mean, he probably could act smooth, but you either are or you're not. Billy D is smooth. You can't take that away from the dude. It's like it's in his nature, and it's like one of those things like that right there. I was like, that could have been.
He just drips coolness from the second you see him on the screen. And Donald Glover, it's like he's dorky. He was okay in Community, but like not.
He's not Lando. He's not Lando, and it's this.
This is one of the things that. All right, reel it in, Braylon. Don't get ranty. Don't get ranty.
Get ranty.
Okay, first of all, how do you blow off so much money on Rogue One and the solo, the Han Solo movie? Even that's redundant. But anyway, how are you gonna do that and not spend money on just like make a different like anthology movie that's Star Wars? You don't need to market it. It's Star Wars. That's all you have to do. Just put Star Wars on it and people are going to see it. You don't have to keep on digging back.
I don't know if that's true anymore. I think they've ruined.
Because they screwed it up now. They messed up with The Last Jedi. They already messed it up, so now they can't do that. But they're just digging a hole for themselves.
Well, Last Jedi was kind of the third strike. It's like Force Awakens, people didn't really like it that much, but it wasn't so bad where you were going to write them off. And then Rogue One, people didn't like it. They're like, it's the off-center movie, a different tone. Okay, so like it was a first attempt. And then Last Jedi was like, that was the third strike. It was like, you guys don't even care anymore. We're done.
And to be honest with you, I'm not going to go see it. Like, some people are like, it's a Star Wars movie, you're still going to see it. No, I'm not going to go see this.
No.
Maybe the next Star Wars like official episode 9. I might go see it out of curiosity.
Maybe. I mean, I'm gonna wait for reviews, but like I don't feel like I should be giving them my money. Basically,
I don't even trust reviews. They're gonna say it's amazing. Look at the diversity of the cast.
Never watch reviews. Read a plot synopsis because that actually sold me on certain movies. Like I've been kind of like I was kind of on the fence. Like if you can read a plot. Like, that's spoiled for you. Like, I could read the plot to certain films. Like, okay, look, this sounds like something interesting. Because reading it and actually experiencing the film, two different things. And the idea of, it's like if you were to read, oh my god, like if you read, okay, say you'd just seen the first Star Wars, you'd seen New Hope, and then you read the plot, but you were like kind of on the fence or whatever. But you read, or say if you read or somebody spoiled, Empire for you. Vader's Luke's father. You're going to tell me you're not going to go watch that?
True. Also, usually a good plot synopsis will just say there's revelations being made between the relationship. You're like, ooh, that's intriguing, and then you go find out. And you also usually check your brain of all that stuff once the movie starts. Like you're not constantly thinking about it.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like a good movie can enthrall you, but not like when your imagination's more active and more. It's better than the actual film presented. That's bad. Like when you're filling in the blanks, like, oh, that's really disappointing. Like the movie disappoints you, and it's like, oh, they can do this, they can do that. That's a lot of potential, and then they waste it, they squander it. But it's like with like the Solo movie, and then like they're going the next one's like what, the Obi-Wan movie. Like, who cares? Where he's on the desert planet for 30 years,
Well, is it like a young Obi-Wan or like?
Yeah. It's supposed to be Ewan McGregor is coming back for it.
Oh, so not a young Obi-Wan, an Obi-Wan after Episode 3.
Yeah, well, young enough.
So a middle-aged Obi-Wan. What is he going to do? What possible consequence could that have to the Star Wars plot?
Bounty hunters, I guess,
and protecting. If they just said, we're doing Boba Fett, we're just going to do a Boba Fett movie. Honestly, that right there, because that's kind of the blank slate for the most part. You only had him show up in Empire, Jedi, and that's it. Technically, Clone Wars, but there's so much potential there. Like Boba Fett, like you can do a Boba Fett movie post Jedi. You could show him the movie, and the movie starts with him.
Well, the galaxy's in turmoil, and there's no main giant government running thing. So I imagine being a bounty hunter would be pretty damn lucrative after that.
Yeah,
or at least it would be more. Maybe it would be more desperate because it seems like the Empire likes to hire them as well. But I mean, there could be some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, you could show him actually having some character and stuff, and like that actor, I forget the actor's name. I know he was in We Once Were Warriors and everything. The guy that played Django. The guy that did the voices for all that stuff. That guy, he's a good actor, but like have him playing this kind of like playing Boba Fett. And it's like he's not just doing like the New Republic or whatever you want to call him, and then like he's working for both sides. Like that's what a bounty hunter does. He just doesn't pick sides. He goes where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
But start the movie out like him crawling out of the Sarlacc pit. Show the end of Return of the end of that sequence in Return of the Jedi, and then show him crawling out of the pit. And then like
or just him just crawling out of the pit and like, hey, if you know why he's in there, you don't,
Yeah, exactly. Like there you go. Like that's what I'm saying. Like
he's at a low point in his life, and you've got all these Mandalorian type villains who can come back. Like, you know what I mean? Like his past can be changed. Like you can characterize him. You could tell a really good story in their universe.
Yeah, and but they would probably do the whole thing where he's kind of slapstick a little bit. Like he screws up, he hits his head.
It's Disney, so they're gonna add slapstick humor to everything. That's the formula for every single thing, and I can't stand it. Not every movie needs that. It just undermines everything. Like I'll say this, right? So I was reading the first, I think, 10, 12 issues of the Poe Dameron comic, right? Mm-hmm. And I was expecting it to be trash. Like I really was. And I actually liked it because Poe, like, yeah, he has the hot shot type persona, but he's actually a competent leader. Like there's moments where
he's fucking Maverick in an X-Wing. It's kind of hard to screw that up.
Yeah, and the thing is, and even when he's leading the Black Squadron, like on these like missions, like Leia's like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it because I know you got this. Like I explicitly trust you, right? So whenever people were doubting him, they're like, oh, he's gonna screw it up. She's like, Poe's got this. And even when they get in tight spots, it's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is the plan. I'll handle this. All right, y'all take care of it. And like everybody knows what they're doing. All of a sudden, you get to the Last Jedi, and he's a total idiot. And people are like, well, I was like, well, this is what they decided to do with the character. I was like, no, the character's already been written out in the comics. All right, they can't just toss that aside.
Yeah,
it goes from being a competent, Maverick-esque X-wing pilot.
Well, there's no personal capital for both his skill and his leadership with the people around him, and or with his commanders, which is the sign of a bad commander. The fact that he does all this stuff and then they're just like, oh, I'm still going to treat you like shit because apparently you're not responsible enough to know that we're just evacuating. It's just dumb.
It's bad storytelling, and I have no faith that the actual anymore, whether it be one of the rumors is that after this next Star Wars, after 9, that they're going to basically remake the original trilogy.
Oh God!
And I guess they would and maybe that's what this Solo that's what they're doing with Solo and with the Obi-Wan movie, that they're going to have that Eldritch whatever play the Eldritch Horror. The Eldritch Horror.
That's messed up.
Have him play the new Han, and maybe get some young actress to play the new Leia, the new Luke, and just basically redo the series.
That's something I would tolerate if it was like a video game that carried the original trilogy and then they cast all the new actors, and like that's something I'll tolerate. If they redo it as the movies, it's like, no. I think people are just going to reject it.
Yeah, I think people will reject it, but there'll still be people to go see it, and that's what's the unfortunate thing, because there's going to be they market this thing to people, and these people and there are certain people that will, oh, this is the worst thing ever, but they are so addicted to rage and hatred, and they want to have something to complain about. They are the problem. They're part of the problem. They're people that will. It's the same thing when people, they'll buy a comic just to complain about it. They'll go see a movie just to complain about it. Oh, this is trash. This is horrible, but they'll still buy it. It's like I say something's trash and horrible, and I don't touch it. I don't pay. I'll give them a dime. It's
Exactly.
it's like, what is it? What was that Tomb Raider movie, the one that just came out? I was like, yeah, that's trash. I'm not going to waste. Have you seen it? No, I just tell it. Like, I don't have to go over there and sniff and touch trash to know what trash is. You know,
I don't know. I'm a little more open minded when it comes to things. I try to let things surprise me. I mean, I love shitty B action movies.
A lot of them aren't shitty anymore. They're just mediocre, and mediocrity is the rule of the day. Because back in the day, where you didn't have the money to throw certain, like you now, like to get these movies, they're mediocre because they have international backers. Where back in the day they had international backers, but you had these really sleazy guys.
You're not allowed to insult communism anymore because the Chinese will then just ban your film, and then you'll lose $500 million.
You can't have good supernatural stuff because of the Chinese. They don't want the supernatural.
That's why we need your help for Column, because the China is the enemy in this one.
Good.
Not exactly going to be doing well in that market, but.
Well, you never know, man. Like maybe it's Chinese robots that hate communism. Maybe they buy they actually they'll steal it. They're stealing Chinese money and sending it to you. But
it's not like I won't sell. It's just a matter of just like I'm sure somebody in the party is going to read that and be like, oh, you're like for example, like Command and Conquer Generals got banned in China.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it makes fun of America, makes fun of China, it makes fun of Al Qaeda, but Chinese can't deal with that. They're like, it's a caricature of China and its people, and that's enough reason to ban it.
Well, that's why they changed that Red Dawn remake. That's supposed to be China invading.
Oh God! Same thing with Homefront.
Yeah, Homefront did the same thing.
Which is great. It's great for me because now I can have an invasion and say, oh, it's completely original. But I mean, really, like it's just dumb.
God bless Fallout 3 for actually having that. Not memory lane, whatever. The where you go inside the pod, the memory pod, the memory lounger, and your father's been turned into a dog. There's an evil German scientist who's in a body of an 8-year-old girl, and he's like, do these things, and I'll let your father go. And then I found out like the cheat. You go to this house and you touch this, you touch that, you touch this, you touch that, and a secret panel opens up, and you can initiate the Red Invasion protocols, and the Chinese come in, gunning everybody down.
Yeah, the paratroopers start falling from the sky, and it's like well, then there's the entire expansion, Operation Anchorage or whatever, where you're fighting them.
Anchorage, yeah, but that's the thing. It's like that could have been interesting take on adding to the Star Wars mythos. If you have the stormtroopers are equivalent to Nazis, or like the evil knights, or whatever, like the evil soldiers of this wizard. Like, let's say they're defeated, but this new enemy that's from faraway lands, like they kind of did that with that Thrawn trilogy stuff. With there's like these weird alien creatures that Thrawn was trying to, build up an army against.
The Yuuzhan Vong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know the Yuuzhan Vong were like space Islamic extremists mixed with the Zerg. They were, that was a whole other level of threat. I don't know if I liked it as much as the original, but like, they at least tried to take us somewhere, right? Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like they could have done something like that, but in doing so, like they would probably alienate a lot of people, because a lot of people they want the family, Last Jedi ain't family friendly. It's not this. It didn't like Empire, even though Empire had some really down moments. Jedi and then New Hope, like there's New Hope fills you with like that. There's like that kind of that. There's like a joy in it, and a bit in that kind of that
triumph. It's
triumph. Yeah, exactly. And there's no triumph in Phantom Menace. There's no triumph in Clone Wars.
Well, I should say you don't feel it because of the clusterfuck that is the ending, but it's supposed to be. Oh, look, they blew up the blockade. Because apparently, robots all run off of one ship. Because that makes sense.
Droid control ship, which is just very, very badly done. I mean, I will say they were fun to fight in the games, though. That's for damn sure. Like that right there.
Oh, dude! Oh my God! Star Wars Starfighter. That was a masterpiece. I absolutely love that game.
What was the other one? The Pod Racer game. That was actually really fun.
That was
Like
really well done.
64?
Yes.
Yeah.
The PC one was a little better, but the 64 one was solid as well.
What's so funny about that? It's like I never really cared for those like racing games for the most part, like the NASCAR kind. Like I mean, Turismo was one thing, like Gran Turismo, whatever. But then like the Pod Racer, because it's like this Roman chariot kind of thing. I was like, yeah, there's like everybody had these weird, different, crafts and everything. It was cool. And I mean, that right there could have been a like you could have seen that on more planets or whatever. Like, that would have been interesting. A little thing they could have picked up.
Yeah, I was a little surprised they didn't do like I'm surprised they didn't expand that to an entire like series of games that was like, okay, here's the Tatooine circuit, but then here's the galactic like NASCAR basically of pod racing. Like, well, you know what it reminded me of really, it was Star Wars version of Wipeout. That's really what it was.
It very much was.
And I love the future that Wipeout portrays, because everything's like just beautiful and shiny and high tech, and like it. I hate that when the games like they're like, oh, all this future high tech stuff, and then everything's going to shit. But like Wipeout, like I feel like if you were going to live in a world of a video game world, probably the Wipeout world would be where you want to be.
Well, what if?
But what I'm saying is like they have diversity of tracks because they take you all over the world, and it's like you've got an entire galaxy to play with pod racers. I mean, they could do. I mean, oh my God, they could have went nuts with it, and they really didn't. They just. I guess pod racing was like a sore spot because it was bad in the movies, but I don't know.
Well, that right there is making me think of like if they'd have kept on with that kind of game, eventually would have got a pod racing game kind of like similar to Burnout, like crashing.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Someone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, crashing into someone and like seeing the pod just go spinning in slow motion as it crashes and somebody dies.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Did any of y'all ever get to play F-Zero? Any of the F-Zero games?
Very. Yeah, that in a lot of ways is a precursor. I agree.
Yeah, those. I think actually I played the older ones later, but the first one that I ever got to play was the one for GameCube, GPX. I think it was GX.
Mm-hmm.
The game was tough as nails, man.
Absolutely unforgiving.
They are like if you mess up one like that game. Like we know we make fun of like the get good for everything, but you literally have to get. It does not. The first stage I couldn't get past because you had to get all these orbs. Like you had to collect like I think 50 of them, and you had 3 laps to do it. So you could be like you had to get good at drifting so you wouldn't slow down because you were also timed. It was nuts, man. Like that might be why they may not have made any recent ones because they're like it's too hard for the.
I don't. Yeah, F-Zero's one I don't get, and Wipeout. I remember I got to a certain point in the game, and I can't seem to win consistently, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I love those games, but like the best experiences I've had is with multiplayer, playing against a friend.
That's really what I spent most of my time and doing the grand because like you had the story mode and you had the Grand Prix, which you could actually like collect points and like buy new racers and skins for your car. So that's just what I did. I gave up on the story mode. I was like, I can't do it. But it'd be cool if they made like a pod racing game like that. But are racers popular? Like I don't really pay attention to.
Well, they were oversaturated probably about 6 years ago because you had Gran Turismo coming out, which used to be a big deal, but then they spammed it because they did the prologue. They did Gran Turismo 5. Speaking of Gran Turismo, they did the prologue, and then they did the Gran Turismo 5, and then they did like a sport version, and then they had like a huge expansion, and then they released it again with the expansion. And I don't know if like 6 is out, but like they did all that, and Forza did the same thing, and like every year they had these ones coming out. And they were pushing aside the other racers, and then Burnout was huge at one point, like right at the beginning of when that stuff was starting, which is gone now, which is kind of sad. But like it peaked a couple years ago. So also the Need for Speed titles have been gone.
Yeah, the last one.
Hot Pursuit was amazing, but it was
Hot Pursuit. That's my favorite one.
It was amazing, but it was incomplete. Like it didn't have split screen. It didn't have basically skirmish. It was missing a lot of really core elements where you couldn't set up your own race and stuff like that, and then also the DLC was way too expensive for what you got.
I think that's just games now. DLC.
True, but that's the thing is that like a genre that's niche like racing, like a good, like good games are not going to survive in a market where everybody's been turned off because of those kind of practices.
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing with movies now. I mean, look what we got now. We got these, the Disney going to pretty much own everything at this point. They own. So
I'm scared for X-Men.
I'm honestly that right there. Them pushing it back. Did you hear that they pushed back New Mutants all the way back to next August?
Yeah, they did that for that and the Phoenix saga, which I don't. Be honest,
I don't care.
They're gonna screw it up. I don't care about the X-Men movies. To be honest, X-Men 1 and 2. I actually kind of liked Wolverine. They screwed it up with Silver Samurai. They should have just kept him as a samurai.
And Viper, that character should not have been there. But yeah, But yeah, the Wolverine stuff, like him and Yukio and Mariko.
That was cool. I liked all of that. That was cool.
I don't forget the character's name. But the oh crap.
Mariko?
No, the ninja dude. The one that's
I forget his name.
Yeah, but they shooting him full of arrows and slowing him down. Like that was great.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be the Hand originally, right, in the comics, but they couldn't call him the Hand because
the whole Marvel Studios thing, because that's a more Daredevil thing, even though that's still Frank Miller-ish, but
that's what I'm concerned about, doing that. Like with the X-Men, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to try to roll it over, and it might turn out okay, but like X-Men 1 and 2, Wolverine, X-Men First Class, and X-Men Days of Futures Past, and that's it for me. Everything else just never happened.
Yeah,
I liked Future Past, but I could get into a whole discussion about how the plot really didn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Don't think too much about it.
They wasted. They had so much money to spend on that CGI, but couldn't make the Sentinels look like actual Sentinels. The big purple and red Sentinels.
I just don't know why, if they had recruited Quicksilver to help them, why didn't they just use him to say, "Hey, we need you to stop an assassination that'll start a war"? Like, why did you free Magneto? You knew that what was going to happen. Why would you free him?
Well, that was initially not going to be Quicksilver. It was supposed to be Juggernaut. They're supposed to get Juggernaut to help, and then they just changed it to Quicksilver at the last minute. I don't know if you knew that, but they're supposed to be Juggernaut going in there. Kane Marco.
All right. Well, that would have made a little more sense then.
Like, why would? That's why you wouldn't have it, because this big strong dude who's like, nothing can hurt him and everything.
Still, like, I don't understand why
it's bad writing.
Magneto.
Well,
the risk of him being out is so much more than the risk of them not being able to stop the assassination.
It's bad writing.
They've got one shapeshifter, and they're like, yeah, let's release the most powerful supervillain ever, and that'll solve the problem.
Well, they set up the whole thing with the with Havoc and the rest of the mutants, Havoc, Toad, and a couple of the other mutants fighting the VC in Vietnam, and you set that up. And Mystique goes like, "Now you're free. Yeah, you can go." And like I'd rather see that movie.
Yeah,
mutants fighting in Vietnam. How cool would that be?
You know what's funny? That was in the trailer, and that was the same reason I was disappointed with Call of Duty Black Ops, because you're in Vietnam for like 2 seconds, and I was like, "Come on!"
Exactly.
This is a chance to take a new take on it, and it's like, eh.
But and the other thing was you had a character like, well, we need like the stupidest thing. Like Kitty Pryde's powers to go intangible. No, but now she can, make the time space. How about
that
this?
Was dumb.
That was like you introduce one character, Bishop, and then you have Bishop who well, we can't send nobody through the time stream because their body would be ripped apart. We need because of the energies. Bishop, you can go back. And imagine Bishop showing up in the 1970s dressed like that. That would be cool.
Well, instead they borrowed from. Have you guys ever seen the anime Steins Gate?
Yeah,
no, I had not.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Basically, Kitty Pryde initiates reading Steiner and sends Wolverine back that way.
Yeah,
I'm surprised if more people hadn't pointed that out, but I don't know. I was fine with that. I was just saying I can deal with that if the rest of it makes sense, and it kind of didn't. It was entertaining, yes, but.
I found it was just a mess to me because of the whole thing with that they have a character like the idea of the mutant, the Sentinels hunting down mutations. Technically, like you want to get really technical, they should have gone after Bolivar Trask as soon as they got activated, because dwarfism, that's a mutation. Believe it or not, they would attack their maker. That would have been interesting. Like anybody that's
well, that would have been a good way to. That would have been a good twist.
Yeah,
because they didn't really do that. And
like, you know, the idea of him being a mutant, like him hating himself, like this, like maybe actually he was a mutant, like actually he had some kind of lame powers or something.
Well, yeah, exactly. That was kind of.
Yeah.
Oh well. Speaking of that, for JFK being one of us, yeah. Okay.
Oh, that was like
that was fucking stupid.
That was one of the worst things.
God.
Oh, I was trying to save him, and I'm like, he was one of us, and I was like, you give me a break. So you tell me the pill popper, the pill popper, you know, in chief.
Just make Magneto involved, or make him framed for it. That's fine, you know. Maybe they've imprisoned him because they find him a threat. And this is what they're blaming him on, and maybe he didn't do it, but he's such an asshole that they're like, whatever, we're going to just keep him locked up anyway.
Yeah, it's just...
there's a lot of other excuses they could have done. They're like, no, it's JFK. Everybody's got to, like, worship in... I don't understand.
Those movies in themselves are a mess just because the continuity with everything got screwed up when Bryan Singer left. So, I don't know. I feel like Fox, when I heard Marvel got Fox, part of me was kind of happy because I was like, does that mean we get them in the Marvel vs. Capcom game? And then Capcom's like, oh yeah, we fouled up real bad. So yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom's going on the shelf. Sales were bad. We're not going to do this again for a while. So I was like, okay, well maybe the Marvel comics will get better. I heard Astonishing X-Men got a little better, but I opened it up and I was like, oh, the character's actually drawn like superheroes and everything, and the writing looks competent, but I'll probably wait till the trade comes out. But thinking of just the movies, how they're doing stuff with Star Wars, and they'll try to do that with X-Men, I'm not really excited to see that.
I don't understand how they're possibly making money. Like the market is only so wide; it can only put up with so much garbage. You know, like they say 80-20, 80% of everything is garbage, but that supports the 20% that is good. But it's like they're changing that ratio where like the amount of money they're spending on the crap is getting there. So
well, that's why you look at stuff like Logan, which costs like 80 million or something to make. Deadpool was like 50 million. I think New Mutants was less than 50 million. And like Deadpool 2 is about 50 or so million, 50, 60 million. And unlike these $300 million, because if 50 million is a lot still. But compared to $300, $400 million films, that if it only makes like say 200 million, you're making your money back, you're making profit. And that's not including like sales, digital, rental, whatever. And like these movies, these smaller budgeted films, they actually have a vision. They actually had a vision. You have people that actually cared about the product, and that's what's making me upset about the New Mutants movie, which was supposed to come out last month. And then they pushed it back to next year, and then February. Then they pushed it back to August to make it more scary. Would make me think they're going to insert some kind of Infinity War crap into it. Probably that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. But they're going to just bring it on.
I'm so done with the freaking Avengers movies.
That right there. That's not to me. It's not Avengers. It's when I think of Avengers, I don't think of cosmic conundrums and battling space gods. It's more of battling standard villains, a bunch of street level villains that got together, like Abomination, Absorbing Man, Red Skull, stuff like that. Like a bunch of these guys that alone wouldn't be a threat, but together that's a problem. They're a problem on your hands.
Well, the plan is just like, oh, we're all super powerful and we just show up on Earth and we'll fuck shit up. There's no plan. It's just like that's how it's written too. Like there's no cleverness. Like normally, like a villain has to do something cunning to be able to overpower the government and the superheroes to then be an actual threat, and then it's interesting. But instead, it's like everything is this giant blue laser in the sky or unstoppable alien invasion. It's I don't know, it's just dumb.
Look at Star Wars. Look at Vader. He shows up on scene. He's choking people out. They're killing people. The stormtroopers, when they first showed up, they're killing people. They were killing the rebel soldiers. They were some of them were dying, but they were killing more rebel soldiers, and the rebels gave up. And then Vader was choking people out, breaking necks and everything. He was a badass, but it wasn't like, see how tough and bad I am. He's like, no, he was just doing it.
He wasn't like 15 feet tall and purple and blowing up ships with his mind. Like that wasn't what was happening.
Exactly.
And like he walked in, he was confident. He was,
look at Empire.
He was cool.
he was cool, especially look at Empire, where the whole thing where he's choking people from other ships that are like disappointing him. He's like Han and everything. They show up in the dining room, and Vader and like Han starts shooting, and Vader's just deflecting the blast and takes the blaster from him. And it's like, have you seen, that kind of thing. I was like, it's great. That's like, because that's scary without being like, to me, it's like scary because like, oh, what are you gonna do? I've given it my all. What am I gonna do? Run away from him? It's like there's nothing you can do. But I've been watching. I watched some of it. I haven't watched a lot, but old WWF clips and like these and they have the heel turns and Vince Russo being who he is. It's like he's not the best, but they were able to get across good villains like Big Boss Man, like harassing Big Show and then like really horrific stuff. I mean, there's one angle where he Big Boss Man's father, and this is how horrible this show is. It's like, God Almighty, WWF. This is like 20 years ago. They never do it now, but like Big Boss Man is harassing Big Show, saying like because his father was dying of cancer, and it's like, oh, your father's gonna be dead soon. I'm like, oh my God, but that's how a villain would be. And then at the funeral, goes up, hits Big Boss Man with his cop car, and then grabs the coffin with a chain and drags the coffin away behind the cop car with Big Show on top of the coffin. It's horrible. That's a villainous move. That's really bad. Like I don't even think the Joker would go that far. But like that's how you do villains. You got to make the villain seem evil. You want that villain to get
villains also someone to enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, this is true, and I don't know. Like, to be honest, I'm more hyped for the Legion TV show coming back on FX season 2.
That's so good.
I
that
love
last
that
season
show.
When they did the when I knew I was gonna love that show when they did, I think it was the first episode and they did it, the Bollywood dance number, which I was like, I'm not a big fan of Bollywood, but I like a tiny bit. But I saw that, it's like, and then that oh my God, like I'd never been a big fan of oh crap, what's her name? Aubrey Plaza. But when she did with her character being built up throughout that season, and it's a short show, it's like 10 episodes or whatever. Yeah. But it's like it's so well done. But then that sequence where she's got them all trapped inside their heads, inside David's head, and then that dance sequence, that Nina Simone number.
That was pretty slick.
And then she's like this. She's like in a sweater with like these like fish like this tights or whatever, and like high heels. And then she jumped, going from room to room throughout David's memory. And then like the noose that he was going to hang himself with, and she's like swinging from it, and it's like, oh my God! It's like there's no chill. Awesome. It was so good. Like she's so good.
Fun fact. That episode, the guy I forget what his name is, but the guy who directed it actually directs a whole bunch of Childish Gambino's music videos. That's why it looks like a music video and looks kind of cinematic like that.
Well, see, I have no problem like music video directors. I mean, David Fincher was a music video director. I mean, a lot of these guys they come out of making good. Like it's music videos back in the day used to be good art. Now you get a little bit. You get some of them that come out of it because music videos, nobody really watches them anymore. But you're getting good, like visual elements in Legion. And I know they were talking about that Star Wars show that George Lucas shot before he sold the rights and everything. That's never. I saw like one still from it, but it was like one of those blue screen messes. So God knows what it was supposed to be, live action. But they said he shot like 50 hours of programming. Of footage for the show, but who knows? I mean, you could add anything to it, but that might have been something that'll never, see the light of day. But with Legion, with New Mutants, with Deadpool 2, I'm actually that stuff I'm interested in. Deadpool 2 is like that's the movie I'm looking forward to as far as like those like comic movies and stuff coming out this year. That I could name off the top of my head because it looks fun. It looks good. Like Cable's going to be the bad guy, like I can understand that and it's not the bad guy as in like, oh, he's outright evil, but he's got a mission. He's going to accomplish it. And it's this, he's not going to let anybody get in his way. I like that. It's kind of the classic hero idea of like, two heroes meet, they fight and then become friends with Deadpool and Cable. They've never been really, really friendly. So they're
honestly
kind of antagonistic.
Like what you're saying, Deadpool's gonna be fine as long as Disney doesn't screw with what they've got going on. Disney is just like, y'all do you, and we'll just let y'all, as long as y'all keep on making money, do you. But I honestly feel that Disney will probably try to tamper with it a little bit.
Try to make it a little bit softer, a little less.
Yeah, they just need to stay away.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling they're going to say, like, how can we make more money? If we have him show up in our standard movies, we can't also do the, like where he's being pegged by his girlfriend, where, like, poking his finger into bullet holes and doing stuff like that. We can't let that happen. This is a character that's shown up alongside Spider-Man and the rest of the Marvel characters. It's like you can't. It's going to be hard for them to differentiate between that. I mean, he could do it, but
you can't. He's fourth wall breaking. They can't. That'll because it's either not going to be the character,
yeah,
or and then it's like, or it's going to just mess the movie up. So it's like, what's the point? Just right around it.
Yeah. Quick question. So I read all of John Mallon's Cable Run, and I've been on the fence. I don't know if this new group on this Cable book, if it's any good. The cover looks cool, but I don't know if it's any. Has anyone checked it out? Or
I actually looked at the comic store. I didn't see it. They either didn't order that many. They weren't ordering too heavy on the mail-in run. Like they'd order about for the pull boxes plus for 20, but 15, 20 for the racks, and then the tail end of the mail-in run they were only ordering about a dozen for the racks. So they were out. And also, or they might have got shorted because the Diamond Tinseltown #1, which was supposed to come out last week, isn't coming out till this coming up Wednesday. And there's other stuff. And I've been seeing I thought, it's across the board. Like Diamond, was it delayed for some reason? No, Diamond didn't ship it to the store. And then telling them it was delayed, or my store was telling me it was delayed. So either somebody's lying, either Diamond was lying or my store. So I'm going to give Diamond the blame for that because my store's been pretty honest with me.
So whack. Because I know.
Ask Feisty about all the Diamond problems they've been having. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
She's been freaking out because she was saying I only got half my shipment or a third of my shipment. And she's like, dude, what the heck? Or some of the stuff just got lost. They just don't know what the heck happened.
Well, it's another thing is you're dealing with a very clunky, old, outdated, and monopoly that doesn't have to do anything more than it already does. And even then, people don't care. They don't have no pride in their work. And I think it all comes back to when you're doing these movies, we're doing movies, TV shows, comics, and everything like that. I know they got that was a Dr. Aphra comic, that Star Wars. I'm like, that doesn't even okay. So you did a comic, got a character that doesn't even show up in the movies. This Dr. Aphra or something sounds like some kind of it's a medication. Don't take Aphra if you're pregnant or expecting to be pregnant. It may cause diarrhea, bleeding in the eyes. It's stuff like that. It sounds like
a medication.
It's a medication more than a Star Wars character. It's if I know that Dark Horse, I've heard some horror stories from people that I've talked to a couple creators that they'd worked for Dark Horse or had Dark Horse publish their books, and Dark Horse, they would screw you over as much as they could. That's from what these people that will go unnamed, but they were they had just recently got screwed over by it, and I was I can understand they didn't care who knew. They might care now, so that's why I'm not going to mention any names. But that kind of thing. But Star Wars, when they were at Dark Horse, were making damn good comics. Some Dave Dorman covers, the interior art looked great. They didn't just get some random jamoke to do the art, some who cares artist. Even the new even that Poe Dameron stuff. That some of it seemed okay, the art stuff, but the rest of it just didn't seem like it was worth a Star Wars comic. It's this. Who cares? It's a who cares artist.
It's kind of funny because it's that's the example of the corporate cash-in. But how that still is superior to the ideological selection.
Yeah. It's you have people that probably the only reason they got that job is because they knew somebody, not because of how good they are, but it's who they knew. And it really is true. It's not what you can do, it's who you know. And that's getting more and more true. Like back in the day, they didn't care. Like there were people, they just did their work, and it was, maybe you knew them, maybe you didn't, but damn, they did some good work. They did some solid work, and that's what mattered more. But like the ideological purity, it's kind of like, either way, that's against it, and
yeah.
And it's this
speaking of Anakin, there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I have to say, like, as far as Star Wars goes, and as everything else, like, and if they were to say, like, somehow, if, like, George Lucas, like, say Disney, okay, let's say Hollywood is itself, there's turmoil in Hollywood. Like, say something horrible comes out, like, there are certain.
You mean like a horrible sex scandal and child abuse and all these things that are going on?
Let's say like that cracks open again.
I don't know, man. That hasn't sunk that ship. I don't think it's going anywhere.
I have a feeling it's going to take certain few people or whatever. Maybe like, the box office returns are not as good as they were planning, and there's certain things and everything. Like, let's just say somehow, like the kind of the crash in the '60s that happened with the studio system kind of crashed and everything, and these corporations
like a complete fundamental shifting in the way they operate.
Exactly, and so let's say Star Wars comes back up for sale and George Lucas buys it again. Let's say George Lucas buys it back.
I'll trust him with it again. He's freaking crazy. Have you heard him in some interviews recently?
Oh, the interview, not recently, but I did. I do remember that when he after selling it to Star Wars, it was like it's like white slavery, and I'm like, oh no, George, you didn't say that.
To the white slavers of the Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it's like
clan, I guess. I don't know.
And it was like, have you seen the new Star Wars or something? He's like, it's like breaking up with a girl and driving by her house. I just don't do that. I'm like, that's good. At least
beast mode.
at least he's a little aware, like of this kind of thing. But it's
how could you not have a really deep personal connection? I mean, that was his life.
But I think what happened is it probably got to him because so many people hated the prequels and hated what he did with certain things, and
he failed to embrace the memes. That's what happens.
Yeah, and he just said, "You know what? Screw it. You know what? Screw them all. I'm not. This ain't worth it." Then he regretted it afterwards. And it's like, oh no. It's like, what can you do? I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, he didn't sell it. He would probably just, like kind of waste it away. I mean, he's not waste away, but, like how many times can you put Han Solo on the pinball table, as it were? Like they did Indiana Jones. That was horrible. That was so horrible.
That's one of the reasons why I don't trust the new Star Wars, because. One, okay, Lucas did the prequels, but like you could make the argument that he tried something radical and now he can learn, right? But we all saw Indiana Jones 4. We know he hasn't learned shit, and it's bad at this point. So,
that right there, like there was, because you watch the behind the scenes thing, or I watched the footage that they included in the Plinkett review of Crystal Skull, which like Lucas is like, yeah, I wanted Indiana Jones to have a daughter, like his daughter show up. So instead of Mutt, you had like a female.
Okay.
Like, Tomb Raider. So
yeah.
And then, but Spielberg said no, that's stupid. Like,
Spielberg's been dropping the ball too. I don't.
Spielberg sucks. Honestly,
he's just like he gets a good one every 10 movies, right? Like a really good one, like a genuinely good one. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. But he's like constantly making them, so we just like forget that like most of what he puts out is crap because he puts out things we like occasionally.
The last one I actually enjoyed was 10-10 because that was just a Steven Spielberg greatest hits. That 10-10 movie he did.
I saw that. It looked terrible. I didn't watch it though, but you're telling me it's good, so maybe I'll have to give it a shot.
It was basically like there's sequences in it. It's very much. It was like the original Indiana Jones trilogy, kind of remixed a little bit.
Okay.
Because you got this adventure and everything, but Andy Serkis doing the voice of oh crap, I forgot the captain. I'm not very well versed in 10-10. The dude with the captain dude from 10-10.
Yeah.
And like their sequence, like,
the enduring franchise of Tintin that everybody knows, right?
Yeah, most people know. They know of it, but
I know the name. Just
basically, I know of it, and that's all there is to it.
There's a dog.
Snowy.
I think that's all I know.
Snowy, the little dog. Yes, which Tintin's like one of those things like I didn't discover till I was like in my late 20s. Other people saying, "Hey, this is a good book." So I'm like, I've never heard of it. Yeah, they've been around since the 1930s. I'm like, I still never heard of it. It's like predates World War II and everything, but it's like, but yeah, it's like with Lucas, like I think one initial idea is like they wanted to do something with Atlantis, and then they wanted to do something, really ridiculous and stuff like with giant Indiana Jones versus like giant ants, and I'm like, you know what? It couldn't be any worse. It couldn't be any worse. Like that actually would.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like stuff they should have experimented with comic books. And then if one of them ends up being really good for some reason, then you make it a movie.
Well, they did that. I mean, if you've ever watched, and this is one thing I kind of wish they had done with Star Wars in a way, because Lucas wasn't like people. Like, Lucas produced and wrote not all of them. He did a lot. He did the plots for them, but the Young Indiana Jones Adventures, with the Sean Patrick Flannery or whatever, the guy who was in Boondock Saints with Norman Reedus, the other dude, not Norman Reedus, but the other dude.
Okay.
The Young Indiana Jones Adventures are so damn good. They're like mini movies. Like they're like usually about an hour and a half long.
I thought River Phoenix was in those.
Oh no, that was the beginning of. That's what basically set up. Like they wanted to do a sequence like to show kind of the origin.
You're talking the ones where the ones where he's like in World War One. It's been a while since I've seen it. I remember liking it.
But yeah, this ain't River Phoenix. This is because River Phoenix was dead by this point. He'd already overdosed in the Viper Room or whatever.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I thought it was Kurt Cobain. Like I thought it was the same guy.
Oh yeah,
I just assumed. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
It kind of look. I mean, with the hair. I mean, yeah, that's not too far apart. Yeah, I can see that. You know what? That's not a bad assumption right there. But with
give me a break. I was like 8.
The whole Hollywood thing, like River Phoenix. Like apparently there's a alleged that Merv Griffin, that big producer, he did all the Merv Griffin show, produced all those like Jeopardy and all that stuff, and yeah, he was apparently allegedly molesting River Phoenix and everything.
Oh, God, who knows at this point?
But it's like really creepy stuff. I mean, Hollywood just is a cesspool, but
Hollywood's a scary place.
If any parent to allow their kid to be like a child star, like that's just like that's like child abuse. You want to act, little Johnny or little Susie? No, you don't get to act.
Well, it was what's this? Oh my God, the Lord of the Rings guy.
John Aston.
No. Elijah Wood talked about that kind of stuff, and he said what kept him safe was the fact his parents were always there wherever he was for any reason, for anything. He had a basically really, really supportive parents. One of the parents was there, and they pretty much didn't fuck with him because the parents were there. But he said everybody else, not so much.
They're a fair game. It's kind of like this. Oh man, that was And
that's probably why he's the only like child actor who didn't lose his fucking mind. But he had really, really good parents.
Yeah, you got to look at some of these people that come out of there. It's like you got to. There are certain things like you got to think there's got to be bigger names that nobody's because they're so protected. And I have a theory, and I'm like, I hope I'm wrong. I'm not going to even say it. I will type it, but I will type it.
Right.
But it ties in because of there's certain actors and certain movies and certain productions that makes sense. Like there's certain like deaths and weird stuff that's happened and also because of the connections. Yeah, it's definitely.
I see what you wrote, and I can't prove you wrong, and nothing surprises me at this point. So
that's a theory. It's a theory at this point, but God knows, like, it probably until he dies, nobody will know the truth. And it's like,
oh God,
I can't. I'm one of these people. I can't separate the art from the artist. So all my stuff goes in the trash.
Oh no, that's true.
But
well, what they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's like, you know.
And like, there's very few people that have that power, and I think he's one of them. But
man, that would be.
I hope I'm wrong. I like to be proven wrong.
because that taints. I think because that would just taint so much good stuff.
Yeah,
But I don't think, like, how could you be that high up and not know that this shit was going on?
Yeah, but
and then it makes you wonder, like, oh, not only were you ignoring it, you might have actually been complacent with it.
Yeah,
participating.
Good, evil prevails if good men do nothing. You know that thing. It's
Hollywood's the definition of good men doing nothing, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, you look at the ones that are ostracized, like your James Woods, your oh
my God,
Adam Baldwin's and everything. James Woods, he's great.
He's a fucking bomb thrower on Twitter. Oh my God.
Adam Baldwin.
But he doesn't care at all.
Adam Baldwin doesn't care either. I was like, that was so funny. It's like they don't care. It's like, and who's the other one? Merle from Walking Dead. Oh crap. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies too.
Chris. Wait, no, you're not talking about Chris Pratt.
Yondu. Damn it.
Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker, yeah, that's it. The dude, he's like one of those anti-Hollywood kind of guys. He's Hollywood. He's got, I got my own gun range and everything. And he's like, it's like he just said, he's like he's the open, like, one of those people where,
yeah.
Like,
well, you know what? More people are gonna relate to him because I mean, I would love to have a range like that. I don't want to, like, drive a smart car and drink soy lattes and live a vegan lifestyle like these other Hollywood people aspire to be. You know, they got all the money and fame, and then that's how they choose to live their life. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's kind of like, what's the guy? Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, yeah.
Yeah, the guy from Cheers, right?
Yeah.
He's nuts.
Well, that's what's so funny about these people. They're a lot of times they're out of their damn minds. But you look at, Harrison Ford's like almost killing himself like every other week, crashing planes or whatever. It's like Carrie Fisher was Mark Hamill. I feel kind of. For a while I felt bad because he's pigeonholed being Luke Skywalker and everything, and then he just did the Joker voice, everything like that.
Yeah,
that's the only thing he's known for: Joker and Luke Skywalker. That's it. But I used to be like, oh, he seems like a pretty cool person. I don't think so anymore.
No, I had my dreams shattered. Particularly once I had always kind of read interviews and stuff, and I was like, maybe he's not so great. But then I started following him on Twitter, and that's the surest way to kill your heroes is to start following them on Twitter. Because my God, it's like
you don't need too much information. It's like
to the heart, man. Because it's not even like he disagrees with you. It's he hates you and he blames you for XYZ because you are different than him, and it's just like it's hard to look at. I had to unfollow him. It's just like, oh God.
Well, I follow someone on Twitter, a voice actress, and no name. I'll not mention her name, but it was so.
I probably can guess.
Well, you probably can, but you could, and I was like, oh, she's really cool and everything, and then like saying, oh, can I direct a voiceover session and also be double penetrated at the same time? I'm like, well, all right.
Okay, maybe I don't know who you're talking about. Oh my God.
Like, you know what? I get that you're kind of single and ready to mingle, and you're open about your sexuality, but that's maybe a little too much information. It's kind of like, and knowing like the characters she's voiced, they're not like, and also like she's done some other acting stuff, but no adult acting. But I wouldn't be surprised if that actually came out. There are actually some videos or something.
You would be surprised, particularly in the anime industry, the amount of people who are in the the hentai dubbing stuff.
Oh,
they operate under a different name, and I've met many of them, and they're wonderful actors, and they're really, really great people, and really, really funny, and they have a really good sense of humor about it. But it's a thing, and it's how a lot of people break in, and I'm just like, more power to them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see, but certain things will get ruined by, apparently Ian McDiarmid's kind of like that kind of thing. If people have met him, he's kind of a prick, same thing with
Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah.
But no, I'm trying to think of who that is.
Oh, Sidious, Palpatine, the Emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's one of those, like I'm a classically trained actor. Same thing.
He's one of them.
No.
But it's like but that's what's so funny. It's like you look at these. Like everybody from Star Wars. Like I I'm trying like. I mean,
how can he take himself seriously after the prequels? Come on.
Yeah.
He does the jump and spin thing. Like you gotta have a sense of humor.
He does a Psycho Crusher.
Come on.
He pulls a
Psycho Crusher. Exactly.
I just thought about that. I didn't realize that until y'all brought it up. Like he does.
It's a Psycho Crusher. It's a fourth Psycho Crusher. Yeah.
Oh my god! But it's
He's
like
bison.
I think Billy D be pretty cool, pretty chill to me. You know, as long as you're not like fangasming, as they say. Say, hey Billy D, how's it going? Say, all right, like that kind of thing. Like like the kind of
Well, that's the thing. You know, he keeps at least a decent distance from people in that sense. You know, like he seems like a guy you'd want to meet, have a drink with, but like not like, you know. You don't have to get into his personal. You don't have to know who he is. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
It's like like I'm trying to think. Like Peter Mayhew,
Bruce Willis, Harrison Ford. Yeah.
Harrison Ford. Like Harrison Ford doesn't seem like very personable at all. I mean, I feel like even if you were working on his planes or something, he'd still be like, yeah, whatever. You know, like that kind of thing. Like not even.
I don't know. He's just. Again, like just a guy you just have a drink with and be like, that was cool. I met him. You know. Whatever.
It's like, hey, how you doing? Like that kind of thing. Like not even like, yeah, I loved you in this. It's like, it's like, like, hey, like.
Does any players play? So does he play any characters that give off like the I want that to be my best friend vibe? Because I don't think he does.
No, he's always either the loner or kind of like the rough around the edges type character for the most part.
Well, I mean, I know he was like a carpenter or something. He was like one of these like kind of handyman or something before he became an actor. He was just like some random dude, and he was like whoever. He was like like kind of a spot actor. Like needs somebody to read lines. Hey, there's a guy fixing some stuff over there. Hey, you want to read some lines?
Well, that's what he did for I think Star Wars. He was a fill-in. He was a cross actor for reading across. They you don't have the person who actually is cast doing the counter lines.
Yeah, they were.
I think that's where he was, and they liked him so much. They were like, we're gonna have him do the regular audition.
Because they had like Christopher Walken and like
there's a lot of people.
Yeah, Christopher Walken was like one of them. I think Kurt Russell was going to. They had Kurt Russell want to be Luke Skywalker or something, which would have been interesting. Which I would like. God. That would actually been like, but with no. If he,
I think either as Han or Luke, I think Kurt Russell would have actually worked.
I think so either. Like he's got the skills to do it, and it's like I don't know, man. It's like I kind of glad he didn't get pigeonholed because Star Wars might have been a little too much because he got even though he's been Snake Plissken.
If he was still I don't know he still could have I think done Big Trouble in Little China and because like Mark Hamill was never like really a huge buff dude so he couldn't really he just didn't have the screen presence that Harrison Ford did or like Kurt Russell does. So he needed to be written a good role to be able to act it. And like that just wasn't what was popular by the time he was moving into after his career launched. Yeah. So
but that's the thing like what could have been with Star Wars and everything. Like they there's a kind of that what if scenarios and everything and it's kind of bad to live in the past, like that kind of thing. Oh man, what could have been with that? Right there, but also then we got stuff like that. The holiday special, which I couldn't even watch that as a joke. That was just too bad.
That was really bad. That was classic garbage '70s television.
Yeah, that was.
I just can't even believe George Lucas let that even exist.
Too much money coming in for the toys, man.
Oh my god. You know what? If everybody had seen that after the original, I think probably the fact that it was a ratings flop helped them. Because if everybody had seen that, would you have gone into Empire Strikes Back enthusiastic? You know what I mean? Like if you had seen that, like you had seen nothing else, you saw the original Star Wars, you're like, oh, that was good, a little cheesy, but I liked it, and then that's what you saw, and you're like, oh god, like what's coming next? Like
I would have a wait and see approach. I'd be like, I don't know about this. Let me just sit back, and then if people were saying it was good, then I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that would, that could ruin your whole perception of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're like a little kid, it's like almost like seeing the actor out of character. It kind of ruins it. But like in that case, it's like everyone's out of character, and not only out of character, they're out of setting, and the style's different, and everything you hated about television, and all the reasons that the Star Wars was new and good, they've just erased. Like it would be, I don't know. I think that would be devastating to a young kid seeing that.
Well, and that's another thing. It's like you got to think a lot of these kids. I mean, this stuff is looked bad. It was looked badly upon them, but not as badly as it is now. Because I mean, like it's kind of the Streisand effect. You know, like Lucas tried to get rid of it, and look what happened. You know, like
Well, the internet kind of made it so that came out of obscurity. Otherwise, he could have done that indefinitely, I think.
Well, the VHS were floating around at conventions before that too. So I mean,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, the bootlegging community. I mean, that's the same things like with those. You know, with the like the pilot episodes and stuff that never really got aired, but somebody had a bootleg. Same thing with the bootlegs of the Roger Corman produced Fantastic Four. They tried to
which is ironically better than all the other Fantastic Four movies.
It's to me like I know people say like, oh, the best Fantastic Four movie is Incredibles, but that's not really Fantastic Four. I mean, that's the Incredibles. The Incredibles borrows a lot from other things, but it's not really Fantastic Four. Which is another thing. I might go see the new one, but I don't know. It's just too little.
Oh, they're doing a new Fantastic Four, or talking about
new Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought the original was okay. I don't know what all the hype was about, you know, but whatever.
Yeah, see, I don't. You know, I'm not too excited for it. I don't. You know, it's the same thing. Like if they were to say, you know, at this point, there's like nothing they could do. I don't believe that could get me back into Star Wars. I don't think there's something they could do. Like,
you know what would get me back into it? A really, really, really good game, probably.
Okay, a game. Like,
that would get me back into it. But like right now, I have no faith in the movies moving forward.
Okay, so no thing the movies could do could get you back in. Braylon, how about you, man? Is there anything they could get you back into it?
Well, I know this is a stretch. Maybe a solid comic book run. But that's probably not going to happen ever in a million years at this rate. I don't know. I think just maybe making an anthology movie, a movie that's just not connected to Han Solo, the original prequels, or anything. Just make it its own new story. And if that was good, then I'd be like, okay, all right, maybe I'll see what they're doing.
Well, at that point, you might as well start a new franchise, though. You know?
Yeah.
Like you might as well just have like a whole other universe. For something else, like what's going to be the next Star Wars? That's what's going to be the next Star Wars. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I guess they can't do anything then. That's the only thing I can think of. I was like, what else is there?
Well,
we haven't have we had a Star Wars like in terms of like a universe that was this impactful before? Like, what's going to replace that? Because like we're assuming basically that Disney's going to drive it into the ground to the point where it's basically toxic. Which I think they already have really done with the older fans. But, like, what's going to, like, something else, like, Star Wars has overshadowed so many other things where, like, people can't establish their own universe. And even stuff that's, like, successful, like Harry Potter, like, that universe, like, yeah, okay, like, teenage girls love it, but, like, it has nowhere near the same impact and appeal that Star Wars has had. And, in fact, in 10 years, nobody's going to even remember it.
Well, even though there's people going around with them signs saying, you know, the whole, that was the most embarrassing stuff, like the
on the 14th,
the Second
oh
Amendment thing. It's like they disarmed, you know, they you know, the teachers weren't armed or some crap like that.
Oh no, they had wands, not guns. I'm like, you mean the thing that they can just like point at somebody and say some words like an amateur and then fucking murder them with no return?
Or electrocute them to the point where, or paralyze them.
Yeah, paralyze them, do horrible things to them. Like I don't know. Like these people don't like they don't listen to their own arguments. It's like that's like literally the opposite argument. Every teacher was armed in Hogwarts. In fact, most of the students, all the students were too. They all had their wands. You know.
Yeah.
like what is the point? Like what are you trying to say here? They lived in a fucking castle fortress. Like what is your analogy? Like what are you talking about? I don't know, man. But what I mean, besides that, it's like in terms of like what is going to be the next thing that replaces this Star Wars universe in the cultural zeitgeist, essentially.
I don't think
no idea. I don't think there's going to be anything. I mean, the Marvel movies, but I mean, eventually, I mean, right now the Marvel movies are even suffering from just burnout. People,
it's fatigue. That's what I mean. Though, like Star Wars, the original trilogy, there's 3 movies, and then a bunch of decent video games and auxiliaries. But there's really 3 movies that anchored that universe, right?
Yeah, I would say I don't even know because like I heard Pacific Rim, like the sequel, just kind of like nobody's really like I've heard like early reviews that it's just kind of meh, like it's just a disappointment.
Well, we in the comments we got John Matrix. Thanks for showing up, John. Bennett's Bennett's letting off some steam right now. But we got Solo is looking like cosplay of Star Wars. I ain't gonna disagree with that. Billy D is Colt 45. Donald Glover is O'Doul's.
Oh my God.
O'Doul's, maybe Coors Light on occasion.
Maybe Coors Light. He can move up to Coors Light, but he's always going to be the low end.
That'll be a success if in Solo he moves himself up to Coors Light.
But then we got Mirania. Yes, I remember the Ewok TV movie Caravan of Courage. That's what it has to be. It has to be the Caravan of Courage, which I remember watching that one time, and it was the boring. You want to talk about? I'd take Senate scenes. I'd take talking about trade negotiations over the Caravan of Courage. That's how boring this shit is.
Man,
that's rough. I mean, that's really rough right there to actually go about that. But what can you do though? I mean, like you have these people that I think at that point Lucas was kind of checked out a little bit on Star Wars. I mean, he was a little burned out, considering that it focused like pretty much about almost a decade of his life at that point to Star Wars, getting it off the ground and maintaining the toy stuff and like that kind of thing. Like what can you do really?
I don't know. I don't know how you could get bored with that. I mean, it'd be like oh woe was me. It's so successful. People love it. Like I don't know. Nothing's making him like do more stuff than he should be, needs to be doing creatively.
Yeah, but it's like when you're dealing with Star Wars, when you're dealing with what the idea of this fantasy wrapped in science fiction kind of trappings, it's like wrapping paper. You put a new coat of paint.
Well, it's skin fantasy, I would say, because it's got more in common with a Western than actual proper science fiction.
Yeah, it's just I want to see. I wouldn't mind seeing like a Star Wars kind of Western a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of like I could see that actually happen. Like still like kind of Western fantasy a little bit, but I don't want to see what's been happening lately. I don't want to see this again. I don't want to see this. They call it Star Wars, but there's nothing about it that's Star Wars. There's no one-to-one comparison. Like the Dark Wizard, that could be the Emperor. You have the Black Knight, which could be Vader. You have the old wizard, the old white wizard or whatever, the good wizard.
It's Lord of the Rings in space in a lot of ways.
It's basically and there's no comparison to the new things. Like okay, what's Rey? Like the fan insert. You have they'll start like having ideas moving towards that. So like your villains have no motivation. There's no character motivation. There's no characters really. I mean, the closest thing to a character in any of these new movies was Finn.
Yeah.
And they screwed it. They screwed it over. Like, you have to you can't win by killing what you love. You have to say killing what you hate. You have to say what you love or whatever.
Star Wars. Wars is in the title. How do you like? I don't know.
Why? This is so stupid, right? And they could have solved this, and they should have known this. They should have had Finn, fine. Cut Rey completely. Make Poe's character the female hotshot pilot, who's the sister of Kylo Ren, who's the daughter of Leia, right? Discovering herself. Roughly the same plot. Cut Rey completely. Problem solved, right?
Yeah.
There you go. You've got emotional investment from a main character because they have a direct connection to the bad guy, but it's a little different because now there's no secret that he's the brother, And Finn's along for the ride. I mean, that would be, Finn would be kind of the eyes of the audience. He's a normal guy and he's thrown in. Like they could have mixed it up a little bit while keeping the elements, but instead they're just like, I don't understand, like, from a writing perspective, what, like, it seems like this was something written in a weekend and they didn't hammer it out.
I think it's a mixture of that, and I think sadly, I don't want to be like this guy that's in foil hat, but I think it's a bit of an agenda thing. Well, I mean, it's obvious when they said the Force is female and all that type of stuff, but I think that's part of it. The people that they hired were probably quote unquote diversity hires that weren't necessarily
all like-minded won't actually level proper criticism because everything they do is awesome.
exactly, and nobody was. I honestly feel like there were probably people in the room, but nobody wanted to say anything because they didn't want to be labeled as a quote unquote misogynist, whatever bigot.
God.
And
They wanted to be an ally.
and here's the thing: it's creeping into everything. Because comics is a smaller medium. You've got people like, oh, whatever, doesn't bother me. Then you've got people that are in the games and they're starting to see it come into the games. And now people are taking notice. People that are like the casual TV movie going audience now starting to notice. The things that we noticed 3 years ago now is creeping in the video games and the movies and other forms of entertainment. Now
it's been there. I mean, it's always been, the cancer's always been there, but now it's like everything has a piece of it.
Yeah.
Like you can't escape it now.
And the worst thing is, it doesn't have to be that way, but there's too many people afraid to kind of voice their opinions and stand up to it. And it's, in a way, it's similar to what George Lucas went through with the prequels. Like, nobody would say, like, hey, George, that sounds stupid. What are you doing? Like, maybe somebody stood up and said, hey,
well, yeah, he moved up to, like, that godlike status where he was untouchable.
Yeah,
and
then
if he would have said it, he'd be like, oh, thank you for your honesty. You're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, maybe, like, but then you might have the same exact opposite happen. Like, yeah, thank you for your honesty. Like, basically, so you have the power then. Like, like kind of like he was that little interview thing, like the one of the interview, the behind the scenes thing, where he's basically telling people, hey, if I forget to say cut. Just say cut if I forget to say cut. It's like, you're supposed to direct this damn thing. You don't even know the proper directions to actually direct your actors and film things.
He directed it from like a beach chair. Like, I don't know.
I'm surprised he directed from a bar lounger. He's just like propping it up and just like, all right, roll or whatever. I don't care. Like, George, was that any good? Yeah, it was great. Okay, let's move on. It's like he didn't care. It's like the lack of caring, and that's another thing. I would like there to be hope for Star Wars. I'd like there to be things going on. I mean, I'd like to good. I'd like good stuff to happen, but what can you say? I think Star Wars, and for all intents and purposes, the idea of Star Wars died with Jedi. The heart of Star Wars died with Jedi.
Star Wars is dead.
Star Wars is dead. Like, case closed.
The Force is no longer with us. The Force is gone. The Force
is a lie. The
Force is fake news.
It was a psyop that that the Sith were running things. It was a psyop. It was a inside job. The Death Star was inside.
This is like Disney headquarters. It's like the throne room set up on like the top floor. The Emperor's there. Yes.
I've seen them. I've seen those things like
Mickey Mouse, the Emperor, beloved franchise.
Well, that's you got to think. You'd have people. You make catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, but they let Kathleen Kennedy run the thing, and she's running right to the ground. But
and that's the thing. It's like you see somebody like her, like she was talented when she was playing small ball, and now that they've like rocketed her to the top and nobody can question her, now it's like just one mistake after another, like one franchise murdering mistake after another.
It's basically like Captain Phillips, I'm the captain now meme.
I'm the captain now.
I'm the captain now.
But it's like one of the things that bothers me with the whole. I remember this is before Carrie Fisher died. Like that, which was just. It was. Like, I wasn't sad that she's dead. It's just it was rough to see her on film because like all the years of drugs and abuse and everything. Like,
yeah, she's.
Who'd have thought Max von Sydow sounded more more with it? That dude's like nearly 100 years old. It's like this woman that's almost half his age or whatever, but all them drugs and everything. Like, dear God, just
you can see if you watch Return of the Jedi real carefully in HD, you can see she has
the coke nail,
the coke nail, which they I guess just didn't. you can't see it when you're like watching on 480, but when you watch it like on Blu-ray or DVD on like big screen, like you pause it, it's there, and it's like, oh my god, Princess has been snorting the death sticks.
What gets me is that right there when there's an interview with her, and she was like, I think it was like I want to say it was the Graham Norton show, that British show. And like the guys that cut a little more loose on the BBC than they do here in the States on those talk shows, like they'll cuss and everything like that, and a certain content. But when they did the like her and like Daisy Ridley, or she was talking about Daisy Ridley, no, don't let them exploit you, don't let them put you in a metal bikini. I'm like, I'm not mistaken, you were all cool with it. I guess you were on drugs at the time. Maybe not do drugs. Tell her maybe stay away from the coke.
I don't know. Daisy Ridley, she's not
that attractive
enough to be like,
she's plain. She's very plain. She's got six head action going on.
I mean, maybe it's the makeup or the way they do her, but like they make her look as boring as possible.
You know what? Like she makes Keira Knightley, and I like Keira Knightley a bit, but she makes Keira Knightley look like the sexiest woman alive. You know, that kind of thing. And that's in contrast, there's like a certain confident, sexy spunk to Princess Leia, and Rey does not have that at all. Cool. Like, I think in that kind of role, that's like really what should have been. Like if they wanted to be kind of with it and with the times, it should have been Finn should have been some poor white trash farmer dude that they just grabbed up, they conscripted into the army, to the Empire or whatever. Just call it the Empire. That's what it is. It's called the Empire. And then he ends up on he escapes. He flees. He's been waiting to find get out of there. So he flees, ends up on the desert planet, and there's this kind of warrior woman there, a black woman. That should, instead of Rey, it's like that would.
Yeah, it's almost like they went like halfway with the diversity checkbox.
Yeah, it's like,
and then it's like nobody's happy because now the characters are bland. You're like, oh.
And the thing my idea is like that right there would be a kind of and this kind of like she's but she's untrustworthy of him because he's a fucking stormtrooper. And it's like you want to break it down to it's like what if
that would have been that would have been really interesting. Well, even reverse that would have been interesting. I think.
Well, yeah, like a female trooper or something. Yeah, like that kind of thing. But
Captain Phasma wasted opportunity.
Oh God!
Don't even start me on that. That's another thing that pissed me off.
She's so good at Game of Thrones. Gwendolyn Christie made that character.
It's not that's what I'm saying. It's usually not the actor. It's usually not the actor.
And that's the thing. Like that.
It's not Daisy Ridley's fault that Rey is a piece of shit. It's not her fault.
Though all she does is cry. Just like that's how she got the role. Like she's crying or whatever. It's like
I don't know my place in all this.
Shut up.
It's like she's chewing the air, not chewing scenery, but chewing air. She's like, I talk like that. I'm British. Like that kind of thing. Like where is Kylo Ren? And like this kind of like very chompy. She looks like a human Muppet. She's like a human. Like who's to say she ain't part of Jim Henson's studio?
the way they frame her head, like I've seen her like off camera, and she's proportioned fine. But like it's something about like, especially in like Force Awakens and Last Jedi, like. Maybe it's the framing or the lighting. They make her head look like gigantic.
Well, her head is gigantic, though. If you see,
I guess, but like it doesn't. I don't know.
Sister. I think she's got a twin or a triplet sister or something.
Maybe.
But like they're all like giant headed, and it's like maybe it's some kind of genetic thing. Because I think
But she dresses herself like off camera, and she looks fine. But like I don't know, something that she looks like.
It doesn't.
Almost like she was CGI and they like didn't scale something correctly. Like that, it's weird. And it's just like the way they frame it. Like maybe that's one of those things where it's like, she has kind of a larger head and you need to take consideration and frame things. But by framing things so it doesn't look like she's a large head, you're therefore acknowledging she has a large head. Therefore, that's like discriminatory or something or mean. Like, and maybe that's what that is. But like I don't understand. Like everybody looks. Like, shouldn't people look their best in a movie? Like, isn't that kind of the point?
That's the thing. Like, you have these bad decisions when it comes to that look. There's that double knotted hair for Rey, and like that. Like, why? Why does she have? You think she knows
because Princess Leia had that in Empire, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the double buns. Yeah, like if you're gonna go and do that, make like a short hairstyle or something, or like like that. something desert friendly, you know, not walking around like the double, like that's too much work. That's too much work for the desert. You know, you got to think, put a little realistic, you know, take into it. But, you know, what can you do? I mean, at the end of the day, I think we realized that the Star Wars, Star Wars is dead. The people don't know what they're doing. That, you know, even if they were to do like a Yoda movie, who cares?
The people who are in charge don't, like, they can't. You can't. I mean, it would be basically like there's so many things that need to change. The studio needs to change. The Disney's, everybody they've assigned to Disney needs to change, and you can't. There's, you know, these people are not capable of producing the product we want, because they're not capable of changing. They're fixed in their ways, and it's like, you know, there's really no hope.
Yeah, they should call it a New Hope. It's called a No Hope.
No hope.
Star Wars, a No Hope.
Well, that's the thing. The franchise doesn't stand a chance with who they have at the helm.
No, they don't. And it's like, well, they got JJ coming back. So Kathleen Kennedy running the ship into the.
That's what I mean. Like, oh, JJ's back. That might improve. No, what's it gonna do? Everything's the same. Maybe JJ's marginally better than Rian Johnson. It doesn't matter. It's fundamentally broken.
Yeah, Last Jedi was so bad it made me hate Looper. That's how bad I hated Last Jedi.
It made you hate a movie that you loved.
Yeah, I loved that movie. I was like, it was the best movie of all time. No, it was basically, you know, Akira meets Terminator, and that's all it was. And I was like, I hated it so much. I hated Last Jedi so much. It retroactively made me hate this movie that I one time enjoyed. And I was like, I'm glad I never bought any other ones, bought any more Rian Johnson films, because I'd have to do the same thing. I'd have to break them. You know, I'd have to destroy them.
You're harsher than I am, but
oh god, yeah. Like, I don't, because what's going to do? Sit around? I can't give this stuff away. Nobody wants this shit. So like, fuck it, crack it, throw it in the ground. I don't play.
Burn it.
Well, I would burn it, but I was like, plastic, having to find dig a pit, you know, like, or get a barrel, burn it in a barrel. It's like, you know. But thank you so much, Braylon, Tim, for joining me tonight. Thank you those in the chat. And folks, any more Star Wars content that comes out, God help us all, because I have a feeling it's not going to be that good. And until next time, folks, we shall see you then.